All right, guys, I kind of want to say welcome back to our reunion podcast. This is the second part that we're doing with the gang. It's on a much different night. Later on, we've had 9 episodes of Survivor Second Chance. We've had more time to let things sink in. I've gotten to talk to Dr. Jill, and I've gotten to talk to Troy Zan, and my nightmares are only going to increase now knowing what I could have done to do better in the game. But this is kind of going to be, this is our conclusion, I hope, of this podcast, and it's going to be kind of an open house podcast where people are going to come and go. There's an open link in our Facebook group for the cast that played in the Durham Warriors Survival Challenge in our Facebook group, so use that link if you're watching and you want to jump in. So far I've got Matt and Mike and Wendy joining us. Everybody say hi. Matt, say hi first.
Hey, how's it going?
Where are you from, Matt? I know where you're from.
You
tell everybody else where you're from.
I'm about an hour south of where the event took place.
Awesome. And that's good because we didn't get to talk about. Did we talk about how you got into the event?
Oh, no, we didn't.
All right, we're going to start with that.
Working at the beginning of last time. It is now.
That's right. Mike, go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on, guys? My name's Mike. I'm from Nashville, New Hampshire, and I'm so stoked to be here and to be a part of Survivor Talk with D&D.
There you go. And that little lady y'all have met before, she's the one with all the trophies and everything else. Go ahead and say hi, Wendy.
Hi, I'm from Nokesville, Virginia, and I'm glad to be back.
Awesome. Glad to have all three of you. Let's see. Before we get started, I want to ask you guys what you're thinking of the season so far, because I'm going to ask this when the other people come in and out. Who is not liking this season? Good answer. Good answer. So, Matt, I'll start with you. Who are you surprised by this season, and who do you like in the final 3? I'm going to put you on the spot right now.
Ooh. Well, I have greatly enjoyed this season. I've enjoyed some of the new twists they brought to it. I love in particular the season how the idols all look different from each other. Like, it gives somebody who makes a fake a chance at a better, faking someone out with it, which no one's tried yet, but, I'd be interested to see if anybody does or would in the future. My pick at the beginning was Spencer. Still is my pick because I love seeing – he's given me multiple heart attacks this season because I think he's close to going and then he somehow manages to find his way back. And I'm really proud of him for how far he's gotten. So Spencer's on my radar and Jeremy's on my radar. I love Jeremy's story. I love that he's got 2 idols. I think if he uses them right, he can definitely get to the final 3. So that's where it sits right now for me.
So who's the third?
Oh, if I had to pick a third. I like the aggressive way that Steven's playing the game. Mm-hmm. I think if Steven can use his new stealing a vote in the right way, it could get him all the way there. I'd be cool seeing him. And Steven I can connect with because Steven came across like as he said, fished back out of water.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that because I know in our game I kind of came across as the fish out of water type. So it would be neat to see him go all the way.
Cool. All right, Mike, what do you think?
Well, I think the one thing that's really surprising about this season is I really wasn't expecting much from the San Juan del Sur participants, Kelly, Jeremy, and Keith. But I think they've really come out of the box and shown like they're here to play, they're here to win, with or without their loved ones. I mean, Kelly's playing a flawless game. I didn't vote for her going into it, but now I wish I had. She's put on such a show. Jeremy,
I won't tell you said that next time I talk to her.
Okay. No worries there. Jeremy, I mean, I expect him to play a very similar, very aggressive game like he played last time, but he's kind of laid back, kind of let the cards fall where they may, and he just kind of took advantage of those cards being where they are. And then Keith, I mean, I wasn't expecting much from him. He hasn't given us much yet, but he can drive a tuk-tuk, that's for sure. But he's still around, so that says something. Just the fact that he's still there.
So who's your pick? Who do you like right now in the finals?
Ooh, who do I like I have to say Jeremy. I mean, he's playing a perfect game. He's not too on the radar because obviously there's Joe Amazing there and taking all the spotlight. But he's still in a very solid place, and it's unless you're James from China, it's very hard to not get far if you have 2 idols.
There you go. Yeah, I agree. I was looking forward to seeing James play in San Juan del Sur, and then how he got blown out by people that realized he was a player when I think a lot of them weren't. But this year, I think he wanted to play hard. But you're right. I think he slowly faded into the background. But I think in the same sense, he's leading. And with two idols in his pockets, gosh, it's going to be hard. If he gets any whiff of anything, he'll be playing them, I would imagine.
Right.
Wendy, what do you think so far?
Well, the one thing I'll say is, like, I'm usually on the edge of my seat at the last two tribal councils. My heart's pounding. The last two tribal councils, middle of the season, I've been gripping. I mean, it's just been awesome. So it's been a really riveting season. I guess I have a little difference. I can tell you who my favorites would be to get to the final. I don't think they'll all get there. I'd love to see Steven, Spencer, and Kelly get to the final three. I don't see Steven getting there. He was one of my favorites coming in just because I really felt in his season he should have been the winner. He was the strategist. So I've had very mixed feelings about him this season because he's sort of been edited to sort of be sort of almost a buffoon at first. So when things turned around the last few episodes, I'm like, yes, but I don't know if that's going to be his swan song. But if it's not, if he can keep that going and get to the end, I can see Spencer and Steven and Jeremy sticking together. If Steven could get far, but could Steven then get rid of his new JT, we'd have to see. I think Jeremy's playing a fantastic game, and probably more than anyone, I'd love to see Kelly come and win the whole thing.
I would too. I'm definitely a Kelly fan. Getting to know her these past year or so, she's a very likable person, easy to talk to. She's been on our show many times, so she was easy to pull for. It's just hard to see a path where she gets to the end, where they let her get to the end. I could see Abby getting to the end for GOAT reasons, but Sierra and Kelly, I think, are going to be on the chopping block for the rest of the season.
I think so.
If either of them makes it to the final, they got a lot of friends on the jury, or at least they got people on the jury that say, wow, look where they were. They should have been gone, and now they're in the final. And that's not going to look good. I'm looking forward to the Steven-Jeremy thing. I don't see them both going to the final. There's no way Steven can take Jeremy.
No.
And I think Jeremy knows that, and he's going to be watching Steven at some point and know that he's got to turn on Steven. So I'm really looking forward to how that's going to work out. I hope it's not this week.
I know.
A couple episodes, but I fear that it is. A friend of mine at church, I've been telling him, I said, you got to watch the edit. Watch everything they say and every scene they show because it's all important. Everything plays into something else. And he goes, what about the fact that Steven, they showed him hiding his advantage. They don't show us hiding the idols, but they showed him hiding the advantage. Not only that, it looked like he hit it on a path, right where somebody could find it if it rains real hard, and it's raining all the time out there. So he said, what happens if somebody finds it? I said, well, then he'll probably be the next one to go because nobody's going to keep somebody with that big of an advantage in the game because he could turn on anybody. So and I guess I taught my friend too well. He saw that then. Don't spoil it for me. Don't ruin it. Somebody's going to find his advantage.
But you also, like last season when Dan had the advantage, which was less powerful than this, by the time he played it, it was his swan song. So I'm rooting for Steven to play it and having it work because that will be just another awesome tribal council.
Absolutely. I'd hate to see strike two for a voting advantage. That would be horrible for it to go out again that way.
Right.
So I'll ask you this then. If the four of us are are hanging onto the rope while we're standing on the log in the challenge up in Maine at the Durham Warriors Survival Challenge, and John Vahada comes out there with a plate with a note on top of it. Something is, and he says, all right, here's an advantage in the game. If any of you want this advantage, let go of the rope and come get it. So how does you think that makes us see you, Mike, as somebody that runs and gets into it? What makes you think you're not going to be next on the chopping block? Because if it ain't an idol, you're in trouble.
True. I mean, when I was in the game, like, I literally was begging. Like, after the second or third tribal that we went to back-to-back in a row, I was praying for a twist. Like, please mix things up. Please have redemption on him. Please do something. You got to throw me a bone here. Like, if that opportunity had come up, you wouldn't have had to convince me twice. I probably wouldn't have even waited for John to say go. I probably would have just went for it.
All right. Let's get into Maine then. Before we do, I want to let people know that we are talking about the Durham Warriors Survival Challenge. If you want to find it, it's at www.durhamwarriorschallenge.com. You can find everything there. You can find videos from 2014, some clips from 2013. I think around January you'll find clips for 2015. I know they're working with an editing crew right now, and they're trying to get it ready for January because in January you people can apply for the new season. So right now there's still the 215 application on there, so you can't do anything with that. But there soon will be a link to a 2016 application, which is at the end of June. of 2016. So you're going to want to apply. And they're going to ask you good questions. Write it up, how you play, why you want to win, why you think you can win, and hopefully you'll get a chance to play in Durham like the four of us did. So now you know what we're talking about instead of just beating around the bush there. But before we get into, I think we left off last time at Friday night, right after the Tribe Shuffle. But before we do that, I want Matt to give us his Tina Wessing story, how he got into the Durham Warriors Survival Channel.
My alternate story. Yeah, I mean, for all of you, you put in your application, went through it, and then you got your acceptance letter and an email or whatever and started training and then came out on the day. For me, it was a very different starting experience because I had virtually no time to train. To give you the full impact, I probably have to go back about a year from our event. August 2014, they had finished up with Durham Warriors 2, and I didn't know this thing existed. I wasn't on social media, didn't have Facebook, didn't have Twitter. Any information I got about stuff like this would come through the local paper. And lucky for me, they did an article about Durham Warriors 2 in the paper that shows up at my workplace. So I'm at lunch, I'm thumbing through it in the break room, and I come across this article, front page of the community section, Survivor in Maine. My eyes go wide because I've been a fan from the beginning, and I want a chance to see, can I do this? Because I don't believe that the medical staff would let me do the real show. It's 39 days in a foreign country. You go through a lot, and it's hard on fit people. And I have asthma, and I've just never really believed that I could actually do the real version. But this one, it's an hour from my house. It's 3 days, 4 if you're lucky to make it to the merge. It just seemed really feasible. So I clipped the article out from the paper, and I brought it home, and I said, when they put out applications, I'm going to try this thing. Because it never hurts to try and just see if, you make the cut. So it was February, I think, of this year that they put out applications for us. I had mine in within a week of them putting it out, and I put my heart and soul into that thing. I mean, I've written prize-winning essays when I was back in school, and this was the best thing I'd ever written. And I told them, look, I can't do the real version. I'm going to treat your version like the real version. Give me this chance. And when I sent it off, I thought, I have a story, and I'm a big fan. They've got to pick me. They just got to. And about 2 months later, they made their cut. It was just after tax season. They decided who they wanted. And I go to open up my email, and there's one there. Rush to open it, and it's a generic rejection letter. Sorry, you didn't make the cut for Durham Warriors 2015. Try again next year. It was heartbreaking, because I didn't know what I said wrong, what I wrote wrong, why they didn't pick me. It's a generic letter. You just don't know. But there was a nice little bonus at the bottom. It said, if you want to be part of the alternates list, write us back and let us know. I wrote them back immediately. I said, keep my name, keep my number. I live an hour away. If you get someone who cancels at the last minute, I think I'm an ideal person to call. So, most of my head and my heart said, there's no way. There's no way I'm getting in on this thing. Nobody who's a mega fan like me is going to want to give up their spot. So John Vataha, who runs this thing, very sweetly wrote me back, and he said, you're such a big fan. Why don't you come and watch? I think you might enjoy watching the competition. It's like, oh, yeah, I live an hour away. I can totally come down and watch this thing. So I took the time off from work. I got myself a notepad and pen to take real detailed notes. I figured I'd learn what the atmosphere was like so that if I went and played in 2016, I'd know what to expect, at least a little bit better. And when I took the time off from work, I included the Thursday before. Even though the audience wouldn't be there until Friday, I figured I'd have a day to sleep in and just get my adrenaline under control for going on Friday and meeting all these people from Survivor that were going to be there. And early Thursday morning, I got to bed about 3 a.m. Thursday morning, 9 a.m., the phone rings. Murphy's Law states if I have a day to sleep in, somebody will call the house to wake me up. It's inevitable. It always happens. I should have expected it. But usually it's one of those automated machines, like, CVS Pharmacy calling about my sister's prescription or one of those political surveys or something like that. So I stumble out of bed. I go over to the phone. I don't even look at the ID. I pick up the phone. Hello? Hi, is this Matt? Okay, wait a minute. There is a human voice on the other end of the line calling for me. What's going on? Yeah, this is Matt. Hi, Matt. This is John from Durham Warriors Challenge. Hi. It wasn't the phone I wanted to chuck across the room and break into a million pieces to, like, the best phone ever. And the miracle had occurred. Somebody backed out. A guy backed out. They needed a guy to play. Did I want to? So, heck yeah, I want to play. So I had less than 6 hours to run to Walmart and buy items from the allowed items list that John had given me, come back home, pack 2 bags, one for the game, one for after the game. I mean, I forgot the batteries from my camera. I forgot all my toiletries. I forgot so many things because I was just rushing. I grabbed a packet of fruit snacks, called up my mother, told her where I was going to be for 4 days, and I just booked it as fast as I could get to the event. I had to be there for 3. And I got to Main Forest Yurts. I couldn't find my destination right away. I actually overshot and had to turn around because I don't have GPS in my car. So it was like 10 minutes to go. I find Main Forest Yurts. Pull in there and say, hey, I'm the alternate. I need to get to what turned out to be the Crowley's Farm. And the volunteer there gave me very detailed, very good visual directions that I needed. I got there with like 2 minutes to spare. And I pull in, I roll the window down, and Bob's daughter Paige was the one kind of directing people where to park. And so I'm like, hi, I'm the alternate from the city. And I'm trying to not, I'm trying to play it cool. I'm trying to not be the way I feel inside, which is like, just rushing to get there. So yeah, with 2 minutes to spare, she showed me where to park, and then I met Dwayne. He did my entry interview, and I think it was Brian went through all my stuff, and the rest is history. I got blindfolded, and I joined the rest of you guys.
Well, I never got the clue that you were last minute or anything.
Mm-hmm.
You never looked rushed or anything. So what time? Do you remember what time you pulled up?
My call time was 3. I got there at 2:58.
Wow.
Okay.
According to the clock on my car. So yeah, it was just in the nick of time. So
I think we got there around 2:20 because as soon as we got there, they grabbed me and took me in Bob's house, and they grabbed Dwayne and said, we've got a job for you too, and took him somewhere else. So we didn't see each other for the rest of the 48 hours, I guess, until he started filming everything, and I ran across him. Well, so there you go, folks. If you don't get the first letter, you might, if there's a letter at the bottom that says apply for the alternate, apply for the alternate. And if you live in Maine, that is a game changer. That could be what gets you in.
I mean, it was literal last minute.
And see, Matt was one of the smartest people out there, and he's probably one of the smarter people I know. So I had to go to Facebook while you were talking and realize that I was calling John Fahata. So now I know why I'm not getting any callbacks, emails back, anything back from John V. Because I've switched the letters in his name, so now it's John Bataha. Isn't that right? So, but speaking of fit people, Matt just talked about being fit and everything. We have an extremely fit woman that just showed up out of the blue. Miss Nina Porce has joined us, and from Survivor Worlds Apart. Hi, Nina.
Hi. How are you guys?
Hi, Nina.
Great.
And we all had flashbacks of our time in Maine during this season when Kelly pulled out her wonderful idol and blindsided Mr. Savage. I know Chris Page had a lot of real nightmares from that, and we just piled on from that. So that was awesome. Had our Nina moment this year.
It was pretty cool, wasn't it?
That was pretty awesome.
I was pretty excited for Kelly.
I was too, because she's on my fantasy team. I was really excited.
Did she? Oh.
They got me a load of
Better.
points. The problem is Savage was also on my fantasy team, so I lost and won. But
wow.
But that was cool. So let me ask you 4, since all 4 of you competed. What do you suggest? We're taking this first part of the podcast and suggesting to folks that are going to apply, what do you suggest they work on physically, mentally? What do you suggest they do to prepare to get ready to play in Durham? I'll start with you, Wendy.
I think the first thing is, I imagine a lot of people are like me and are really, really big fans of the show. So the first thing is just the will to try it. I mean, for me, I didn't feel when I applied that I was in the best shape, but I thought it would be good motivation to get into shape. So for me, signing up is winning because you're doing something out of your element, and it's really fun. But also, if you get accepted, I would definitely make the effort to physically get in a little bit of a better shape. For me, I live in the woods. My husband built me a survivor wall and balance beams. Not everyone can do that, but I literally made a little obstacle course that I went and did in my backyard. I learned how to make fire. I learned how to do a slingshot. So, all that fun stuff you see in challenges, you can make it a game, whether at home or at the gym or your backyard. So that's my advice, and I definitely showed up in August in much better shape than I was 6 months before.
Did you do anything mentally? Did you go back and watch any seasons or anything?
I didn't go watch I didn't watch any season purposely for this because I've watched them all and I've watched some of them numerous times. But I sort of thought about I really thought about what my mental game plan would be, but I also knew it would have to be fluid, and for me it definitely had to be fluid. I came in thinking I would be a Denise and look for a Malcolm. I'd be sort of a older woman and look for a younger guy that could be my one person that I aligned with, and it didn't happen that way. It was a totally different game. So just open-mindedness and willingness to, the way the cards fell in the whole game, there were some things that were out of our control, and I was able to use them to my benefit. I could have been on the other side of it. So I think really just being flexible.
Yeah. We were talking to Troy Zan Thursday night during our recap for this last episode, and I asked him, I said, what would you do if you were out on second chance? Was there anybody out there you'd align with or you'd want to, that you would look at immediately and say, I'll work with them? And one of the first people he said was Kelly Wentworth. And it didn't have anything to do with San Juan del Sur or anything about him and her. He didn't even know her, but she was from the same state that he was from. She was from the same area. And I said, it's funny you mention that because the first person I bonded with was actually from New Hampshire. It was Heather. She was the first person I got to talk to, and then I met Chris Lord, and then I heard there was this Virginia woman out here. I said, what do you mean? There's somebody else from Virginia, and I think it was either Carl or the other Chris that said, yeah, there's a Virginia girl out here. I said, I got to find this Virginia person because to me there was a bond there that we would have immediately, and as soon as we met, we talked. We got exchanged names, locations, and then we split and went our separate ways. We didn't talk for real long because I think both of us wanted that same idea. We didn't want to look like we were talking all night. And as fate would have it, we got on the same tribe. We were in the same foursome within an hour of being in that tribe, and it just worked out. So that was one thing that worked out neat for me is that everybody talks about having that one true, the person they can trust. And then I think another hidden advantage is finding someone local. And I didn't realize it would affect me that way, but it did. When I heard Virginia, I thought there's somebody I need to find and talk to. Somebody else I need to go talk to and see how we relate, if we get along. Turns out we're the same age. We've got kids close to the same age, and it's just we had a lot of things in common, and it worked. So thank you, John, and casting people, whoever put us together.
Yeah, exactly.
That was pretty awesome. All right, Mike, you CrossFit trainer, what do you suggest for folks trying to get into this game?
Just definitely find a fitness routine that you like and stick with it. I'm big into CrossFit, and I've been doing it for the last year or so. And in that time, I've dropped 50 pounds and, gotten into much better shape. So, find something you love and, really stick with it and, results will happen. But in terms of the Durham Warriors Survival Challenge, yeah, it's just mentally preparing yourself not only for the game, but for the elements too. Because, the biggest element for me that messed with me was sleep. The fact that, I couldn't make it through the entire night without waking up 70-something times and then wondering, oh my God, what time is it? Is it 1 o'clock? Is it 5 o'clock? Cause I never realized this. You don't have a watch or a clock out there, so you're stuck. I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know if they're coming in 2 minutes, or I don't know if I have 10 hours. So just mentally preparing yourself for that sort of thing, and for the elements, and for being cold and wet and hungry. Just that's more valuable pre-game than worrying about the actual game itself.
Exactly. All right, Matt, what about you? Since you had no time to prepare.
Yeah, I know, really. I think for me, then, I would make the things I should have done and didn't do, which is even if you apply and you get rejected, train like you're going to be there anyway. Worst case scenario, by the time you're done training, even if you're not in the event, you're going to be a more fit person. You're going to be more ready to go just in life in general. So, for me, I watch back Survivor episodes regularly. I think that helps. It can give you some idea, especially knowing that returning people come in to play every year with this. You'll have at least a little bit of a book on the people who are there to play, though they may not necessarily play the same way. You never know. But at least you would have some idea who they are and how they played the first time.
Yeah. That's very true because some of the folks I wasn't as familiar with this. I knew about Nina and I knew Troyzan. I remembered the others, but I didn't remember how they played.
Yes, I didn't either.
Yeah, they were from a while back. So
They were from that old school that's burned down by now. It's not even there anymore.
I think Jill might have been considered new school though, because she was in Nicaragua, so wasn't that like season 21?
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah. But
So-
I'm going to add something too. I mean, all the things that everyone said is really good, and that's exactly what I did before I even did Survivor. And one thing I took it a step further was I knew the food was going to be an issue, and I did not want to get hungry, and I did not want to feel hungry out there because when I'm hungry, I'm really crabby and mean. So I'll tell you what I did before I went on Survivor. A few weeks before I knew I was leaving, I put on a bunch of weight. Okay, well, it's probably a little bit more than a few weeks, but I really didn't have a lot of time to prepare. And then a couple of weeks before I left, I started taking that weight off, and I got down to where I could survive on 800 calories a day and feel pretty comfortable. It's probably 700 or 800 a day. So when I got out there, and I know I only lasted 8 days, but for those 8 days, I did not feel hungry, not one time. And I know I could have probably gone the whole time without even feeling hungry. And my tribe mates, all they talked about was food. All they talked about was being hungry. And I could see them being hungry. And so, I mean, that was one thing I did because I just knew food was going to be an issue. And then with you were saying about the sleep. So that's really funny. I guess that's one advantage us older people have over the younger people. Because as you get older, you tend to wake up in the middle of the night a lot. And we just don't sleep near as much. And even for those 8 days, I did not even feel tired at all. So I don't know if it was my age thing or me getting up all the time in the middle of the night or having insomnia or whatever. But that's really true, is try to get yourself mentally prepared for waking up, because even in Durham, I mean, you wake up like every 30 minutes or so, and when you don't know what time it's tough because you're just sitting around going, and everybody's like, what time is it? What time do you guys think it is? So that was really a good piece of advice to give also.
So if you know anything about Nina or you follow her or anything, you'll know that she's a marathoner, and she runs a lot, she climbs a lot, she goes lots of different places. But was there anything, I know you didn't know which survivors you'd be playing with, but was there anything you did specifically? How much time did you have when you got invited to come play? Do you remember?
Let me think. Well, let me tell you, the whole process took like 2 years. From the time I gave my name to Natalie Tenerelli, it was a whole year before Jody contacted me. And at that point is when I kind of started to get serious and think, okay, it's possible that I'm going to be on. So at that point, I started doing strength training at the gym. And I really didn't start being real serious and really adding a lot of it to my regimen and going to the gym like 6 days a week until about 6 months before. And I didn't even know I was going until a month before.
Wow.
I mean, I think they told me for sure I was leaving mid-June, and we left at the end of July.
Wow.
So I just went ahead and at that point made sure that if I did get chosen to go, that I was going to be in at least the best physical condition I could be in. I think I spent a lot of time working on the physical part of it, and I probably should have spent more time on the mental part of it, because I went into Survivor with a certain way of how I was going to play. It was like, this is how I'm going to play. I'm an older person. I'm really bossy, so I'm just going to sit back and not get in anyone's face or anything. And one thing that hurt me thinking that way was I didn't allow myself to change. I think that was Wendy saying to be flexible. So I didn't allow myself to think that I could change, because I didn't think about what would I do if I can't be this way. I need to be a different way. So it was tough. I didn't know I was going to have so many young people on my tribe. Had I known that, and I get along great with young people, I could have been a different person than I was. You know?
Yeah.
Now I kind of wish I would have gotten everybody's face and been really bossy.
You've been somebody that wanted to take to the end. I know that for getting into Maine, to me, you only play for 4 days, and like Fishback said, you hit the ground running. And if I was going to recommend anything, if you don't have time to watch seasons, go back and watch multiple first episodes of Survivor and see how they meet and greet. Because I felt like that first night after we did the big rowing event, and I think everybody was pretty much in agreement that we were not in tribes yet. We were still two groups, but it just didn't feel like tribes because most of us knew the history of the Durham game. They were going to break us up probably into 3. We didn't think about 4, but at least 3. I know Jared thought about 4, but I think the initial contact, initial reactions, and initial meet and greets is really important because if you don't find 1 or 2 to make an alliance with on Thursday night, you're in trouble on Friday and Saturday morning. You've got to have that contact, even if you get broken up. I lost 2 of mine, but I kept 1 of mine, but that you still got to make that contact. And so to me, watching first days of the Survivor episodes, watch those first episodes, and then keep in mind that you got to have a story to tell at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. If you get to the end, if you're blessed to get there, you've got to be able to tell your story. You've got to be able to tell what you did. Because if you're sitting there with 2 strong people or 1 strong person that has a better story than you, then you might as well go sit on the jury and vote for them because they're going to get all the jury votes. To me, the people that go to Maine have a great respect for the game. There's not really any bitterness. If there is, it goes away pretty quick. But for the most part, they want to reward the person who they felt played the toughest game, the hardest game. I know that Jill and Joel played really hard. They played really well. But I think Wendy's story was, from beginning to end, a better story to reward. It was a better story to watch. And I know it would have made great TV if this was on TV. But how she played and how she actually used them to get to the end and then all of a sudden lap them on the last challenge, I thought was just incredible. So, but I want to let's go to Friday night. And actually, I want to start with you, Nina, if you don't mind, because you and Jamie got put into kind of a bad situation with this shuffle. We kind of talked about the shuffle last time. I was in La La Land. I don't even remember my first confessional, but I was not happy in that first confessional that I gave. I wanted to go find whoever's idea this was and punch him in the face. But anyway, Nina, you and Jamie, how did it work? Now, who was Mike or Matt? No, Matt was with me. Mike was with, which tribe were you with, Mike?
I was with the Green Tribe with Benji and Heather and Chris and all of them.
Okay, so Nina was with Jamie and Carl and Lisa and Chris Page and others. So what was it like for you that night going back to camp for, I guess it was New Tawati, because y'all were the Blue Tribe?
Well, for both Jamie and I mean, we knew right there we were going to have big targets on our back, and we, of course, did not even have the numbers or anything. And I just spent the night trying to talk to as many people as I could and finding out what they knew about the other people on the tribe. I talked a lot with Lisa, so, who do you trust out here? I mean, who's going to be loyal out here? And I talked to Chris, who do you trust? Who's going to be loyal? I probably talked to those 2 the most, trying to figure out who was with who and what was going on, and did anybody have alliances already made, and who did I need to hook up with? It was a hard situation, and for me, I had the hardest time trying to remember who was who and what tribe they were on. I mean, I was like, Chris, I kept wanting to call him Mike. I don't know why. To me, he just looked like a Mike. Carl, I think I wanted to call him, I don't know. I had all these different names for everybody, and I couldn't remember who was who, so I was having a really hard time trying to figure out who was who, and that hurt me right there because I couldn't remember who was together. And then Chris took me aside and said they really wanted to work with me. They just want to work with Jamie. I don't even, to this day, I'm not even sure if that was the truth or not, or if they were just trying to figure out if I had an idol or not. But it was just hard. It was hard trying to figure out because I kind of felt like that the others that had never played Survivor were a tighter knit group than just me and Jamie. So I kind of just felt like, it was just a matter of time before both of us would get voted out, Yeah. It's hard to play when you don't feel like you have someone on your side. And it's amazing after it's all said and done and you sit there and think, oh, I should have done this, or oh, I should have said that, or I should have talked to this person. So I think it's a lot of being on your toes and really watching everybody and seeing what's going on. You know, I hardly slept those nights. I was up a lot tending the fire. I slept very little, but, you know, it was hard trying to figure out who was who. And the Durham thing goes so fast that you don't even have a chance to really get to know people. Right. And I'm kind of one of these people that likes to take my time and get to know people, so it's really hard taking, you know, a game that's played in 39 days and then shoving it into, or cramming it into 4 days. It makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, believe me, I've spent a lot of sleepless nights, especially the first couple of weeks, getting back, thinking about what I could have done different and things. And when we had Troy Zane on, I'd been talking to him all week, getting him on, and I had him for about 20 minutes before we went live. I said, all right, I got to ask you, man. I got to ask you, was there any chance that I could have talked you into this or done something with this? And he said, yeah, man, I was kind of up to working with somebody outside the survivors because I didn't know if they were going to pull me in. I'm like, wait a minute, I shouldn't ask you that question. Don't answer that question because now you're going to make it worse. Now I'm going to have even more sleepless nights that I could have tried something or done something. So, but what about you, Mike, over at the, is it Waya? Was that the name of the other tribe?
I think so. I think it was Waya.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just backtrack for a second. That tribe swap was the worst possible scenario for me. Going back to original Moz, I was in a really good position. I had a solid alliance of 4 on a 6-person tribe. It was me, it was Matt, who I considered to be my ride or die, a guy on the tribe. And then we had Lisa and Carl to make an alliance of 4. So then this whole tribe shuffle happens, and I'm watching everyone go. I'm like playing the numbers in my head, like, okay, if I go with the blue tribe, I have Carl, I have Lisa, we can make something happen. If I go with purple, I still have Matt, you know, we can make something happen there. But they go off, they do their thing, and I'm stuck on the green tribe, and the only person I have from my alliance is Jenny, who not only was she not in my alliance, but she also knew she was out on the outs in that tribe. So she was willing to, you know, kind of part with me, like, right from the start. So I tried to, like, as soon as that tribe swap happened, I turned to Jenny, and I go, you know, we're actually in a really good place right now. And she's like, why? So, and I'm like, I give her the signs, like, 3, 3, 2, swing. So she gives me a nod, like she understands, like, what I'm talking about. So I think, okay, maybe I can work with her. Maybe we can make something happen over there. So I go back to our new camp, and I'm thinking, okay, I have 2 groups of 3. It's Benji, Kristen, and Jesse on one side. And then on the other side, it's Heather, it's Chris, and it's Katie. So which side do I want to work with? And my first gut reaction was I want to work with Benji, with Kristen, and with Jesse because, I mean, you talked earlier, I'm a pretty decent in-shape guy. So if I worked with Heather, Chris, and Katie, I would be a threat right off the bat. So I knew my best case scenario was working with Benji and Kristen and Jesse. So that's why as soon as I got back to camp and Benji was like, hey, I want to go get firewood, you know, does someone want to go with me? I jumped on that chance. Like, you know, I wanted to see what happened and, you know, try to work with him. But as soon as we leave, because I didn't know what was going on in their tribe, he was like, I want to get rid of these 2, like, I want to just move forward without them. And that was an immediate red flag because, you know, if he's willing to just throw them under the bus, imagine what he's going to do to me around merge time.
Right.
So from that point on, I was locked in with Heather, Chris, and Katie. Or so I thought. But I knew I was in a really bad place right off the jump. And I think fair warning, they may need to bleep out my interview, like, following the tribe swap. Because I may have said some things that are not appropriate for PG-13 TV.
So that made it a split then, if it was you, Heather, Katie, and Chris, right?
Right.
4 and 4. So who was the first to go out Saturday morning?
First to go out was Kristen. I knew that was happening. We all the 5 of us, me, Jenny, Chris, Heather, and Katie, knew that going into it. So it was Kristen that went first. Then it was Jesse. And then the third one, I'm not so sure. They might have to do a revote on that. So, but
yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, when that vote happened, like, I was still like, okay, like, we're losing. This isn't good. My plan at that point was I thought I was solid for 1 more vote, and I thought they were going to get rid of Katie to keep up the challenge strength, which I thought was a good move, not only from, like, a strategic challenge standpoint, but also from, like, a number standpoint for me, because Katie was loyal to Heather and Chris.
Right.
Like, hands down, she would have stayed with them no matter what. So if you want to get rid of that number, I'm okay with it. Like, that's another number in my favor. So my plan was, as soon as Katie goes, I go to Jenny and Benji and try to swing them back against Heather and Chris. So bravo to Heather and Chris. They made the perfect move at that point for their game. They didn't know it, but they made the perfect move. And, you know, I had no idea that was happening. I thought I had at least one more vote, and then we could have done something. So I was totally #blindsided. So
awesome. Yeah, I would hope that any future teams have to do the barge push like we had to do, because we didn't get the canoes like they did the year before. But at the same time, I would not wish that shuffle swap, pick from the bottom to the top, whatever it was, on anybody. I would much rather prefer they said, everybody drop your buffs. We got a bag here for the men and a bag for the women. And you guys draw and divide and go from there. Because, and again, in talking to Trorzan and talking to Jill and Joel, the survivors do get worried, like Nina and Jamie were obviously worried, being 2 out of 8, that they would be on the bottom and targets to be picked, and it's understandable. But at the same time, if you're down in numbers, like if the tribe is set up to the point where there's 2 of you from your own tribe, or 3 of you, like Katie and Chris and Heather, and then they had 2 survivors, they may want to work with the survivors because maybe nobody would expect them. That would be a great way to blindside the other new players. So it's not necessarily a done deal that the survivors go out first, but even though it might be the unofficial, traditional thing that you get rid of the survivors, they're too strong, because we happen to face 6 very strong people. All of them were fit. All of them were good at challenges. So any ideas people had about Nina at Worlds Apart should have been wiped away in Maine, because she blew through all the challenges. She played in every one of them. So, I mean, there was no weak survivors in this group. Hey, Kristen.
Hi.
And so we just talked about your boot. Oh, I'm sorry that you're here.
I missed it. Too bad.
But I would much rather have seen, all right, survivors, drop your buffs, and go from there. So I would never wish that shuffle on anybody whatsoever. Kristen, what were your thoughts? We're talking about Friday night, right after the tribe shuffle. What was your thoughts going into that group with Mike? And let's see, it was Heather, Chris, and Katie. You said Jared and Jenny and Jess. Was that
I thought I was in trouble. Definitely screwed from the get-go. I talked about this last time, but the people I was closest with were unfortunately not the 2. I think Wyatt was on my name. Those were the 2 I weren't close with. And so I just didn't have a relationship with Benji/Jared or Jessica at that time. And yet I had a relationship with Candace and Jeff and Chris. So, yeah, I knew I was in trouble from the get-go. And with the speed of the game and we got back to camp and we kind of just tried to get food and fire, and then we went to bed. So there just wasn't a whole lot of being able to shuffle things.
Yeah, was everybody awake all night at y'all's tribe, or did any people sleep?
They slept for a little bit. I think I slept for about half an hour or so, and I woke up and everybody else was asleep and the fire was almost out. So I was freaked out because I'm like, oh my God, I need to keep the fire going, and I didn't know what I was doing. Fortunately, I was able to get some help. But I think some people slept for a couple of hours. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that there were a few people that, were out, but I think there was no one that was straight out. At different points of the night, people were waking up and tending to the fire and talking about Chipotle and pizza and all those sorts of fun things. So it was an eventful night for sure.
Yeah.
Now, was there any talk or any resentment that you guys didn't have any survivors on your tribe?
It wasn't discussed, but I felt it. Deep in my heart, I was like, oh my God, I envied Matt over there who had 6 of them. I was like, really? I can't even get one? It was insane. I really wanted to play with them and get to talk with them, and it kind of was awful that the fact that I didn't get to see interact with Joel and all the others until Sunday when everyone's leaving. Nina, I don't think I said one word to the entire time. So it was definitely a little bit depleting to, A, I don't have anyone in my alliance on my tribe, and B, I can't even geek out about having the same tribe as someone who's on the show. Like, man.
Yeah. Well, we were supposed to actually have Jamie, but I can't remember who it was, ended up picking the wrong person.
Katie.
And,
Katie.
Yeah, Katie. And so we were supposed to have Jamie, and we didn't. But it was funny because I don't know, Mike, if you were paying attention, but they were trying to kind of like, it's actually better without him here because he's just going to talk and bug us all night. It's like a lot of the women were saying that, and I'm like, yeah, in retrospect, I'm like, that would have been so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
To be up and just like hear stories, and it would have changed the dynamic a little bit. I didn't say anything at the time, but I was definitely bummed afterwards. And Jamie's a pretty funny guy. I mean, yeah, maybe we would have been up later, but at least we wouldn't have been focusing on how cold we were.
Yeah, as a sports guy, I grew up playing sports, and I still coach and stuff. I always look for momentum swings, and those things scare me more than anything else because you usually don't see them on your own team or your own tribe unless it's where you go from last to first. But like on Friday when we the barrel challenge, and to me that was something that we needed to watch them the rest of the day because that really scared me. That not only that they did it, but they were laughing. You guys were laughing the second time you did it because you're doing it so fast and so quick.
Right.
And Friday night when we went to our tribes, I'm trying to think about my new tribe, which I didn't really like because I didn't know Matt yet, and he wasn't my original tribe. I had Wendy and I had Bob, which I'd said about 6 words to Bob, and he'd said about 1.5 to me. And then I had 4 survivors, 4 savvy survivors. Any of the 6 were going to be savvy, but we had 4 very savvy survivors, and I'm thinking, what are our options here? What can we do? Meanwhile, I see a tribe of 6 new players and 2 survivors, and I'm thinking either they're going to gang up on them 2 or someone's going to get smart and break up that little group and pick the survivors. And then I look at this group of 8 with no survivors, and I think they're going to be pretty ticked that they came out here. They are getting to play, but they got no survivors.
See, I would have totally been okay with that fact if I had... Is it freezing up for everybody else?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Oh, I was frozen. Was that freeze up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I was going to say that if I'm on that tribe with no survivors, I'm standing up next to the fire and using it as a rally cry. This is our way to shut out all the other tribes. We have to go out there fully rested, fully forced. Let's just go out there, and then after people go to sleep, then I start building my alliances back up and get the numbers back up. But I see 2 people that I'm close to on that tribe over there with no survivors, and I feel for them, and Chris is looking at me like, how did this happen? We're making faces at each other, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. I didn't have any control. You couldn't pick me. They couldn't put me over there, and it's just crazy. But that's what I'm actually worried about. Why a tribe with no survivors coming in to beat everybody, if they got a bone to pick with us. But meanwhile, I got to worry about my own tribe. And I remember that confessional the first night. I did like you, Mike. When we got back there, I just looked for a chance to talk to 2 of them. I just wanted to talk to 2 of them. I didn't care which 2 they were. And I was like, if 2 of them go off for fire or wood, I'm going with them. And it was Joel and it was Jill, the worst 2 for me to go off with. Because they started pestering me with questions about who I knew. Did I have anything in the other tribes that they could work with? And I'm like, yeah, I've got friends over there. I got 2 friends. I got Wendy. I said, we can work. Once we get to the merge, we can take out all these people. And immediately I found out later that if I had 1 friend outside of our tribe, I was in trouble. And they weren't going to use me for anything. So, it was I wasn't have much of a choice, in my opinion. We got there, and I was constantly talking to Wendy. Whenever people would turn their backs, we would talk. We'd sit around the fire. We even said that you guys can have the tent to the survivors. We let the 4 of them wanted to go to the tent, and I said, you know what, Matt's going to go right behind them. And I said, there's no way we can keep Matt from those survivors. He is in survivor world heaven, and they want to talk to him because they're weighing taking Matt or taking us. We need to give them an option, and there's no way we can separate. And Jill even told me, she goes, the 4 of us had plans. Each person had a person. We were going to keep people separated. We're going to do this and do that. And it was tough. And even Andy Baker told me later, he says, you were really put in a bad spot. I mean, there are things I could have done. It's my own fault. But at the same time, it was so frustrating. So what about you? Before we get to Matt, because I know he's laughing over there, I got in the tent. Wendy, what were you thinking the night of the shuffle?
Originally, when the shuffle happened, I was really bummed. It was my first thought because Naughty Tuati tribe, I was so happy with the way we had played together and we'd earned those rewards. So my first thought was, damn, I wish the shuffle was tomorrow. I wanted to spend tonight with my people. I want those beans. I want that rice. I felt like I wanted to share that. So my first thought was, I can't believe this is happening. Not so happy about it. My second thought was, who was so stupid to put 4 survivors together, and how did I get so unlucky to be in that group? And then my third thought was, I need to turn that into luck. And so for me, the thought was, we can win, because watching the 6 of you, Nina, the first day, and after I ended up getting to do the challenges with the 4 original survivors and then the 4 from our group, I don't think that the difference was strength. I think the difference was organization, and because every team had some strong players. So what originally became an advantage was, we can win and save ourselves from the first 2 tribal councils. And that momentum shift for me was huge, because if we didn't have to worry about those first few, I mean, we had a huge, when you have 4 days to play a game that's normally 39 days, having those first 2, 3, 4 times to sit out of tribal was a huge advantage for us. Right. Whatever way we all felt, I think it was a huge advantage. But I also knew we had Matt, who we didn't really know. You and I were super close, and we stayed up all night talking. We had Bob, who was really strong, but was not a strategist at all. And so he could have been the good one for them to take, because he didn't strategize at all. Right. But and so you and I felt like the 2 of us were really underdogs in and I think you and I had different approaches in how we were going to sneak in. But we were underdogs at that point. So my thought was, let's just hope we win. Let's just hope we win that night.
Yeah, we definitely had different approaches, and I think you saw mine and said, let me just give him another shovel so he can dig himself deeper, because I'm going to take advantage of every mistake he makes, and I'm going to go sit beside those 4 survivors. So how was it for you, Matt, that first night with 4 survivors and 3 people you could care less about?
Well, I wouldn't say I could care less. But, yeah, I mean, as a fan of the show, it was like my biggest dream and my worst nightmare all rolled into one. From the group of the 24 of us, I'm actually the only person who ended up on a new tribe with that switch where I lost everybody.
Yeah, you did.
I lost everything I built Thursday and Friday by the time Friday night hit with that twist. Everyone else either had someone they could work with or target. I'm completely alone. I got to start over, and it was that was hard. That was really hard for me. I had, Mike's already mentioned the original alliance of 4 that I had with Old Maws, but everyone in that alliance brought something different to the table. I mean, Carl was our challenge strength person. I was the mental strength puzzles person. Lisa was the social butterfly, and Mike brought the game knowledge. So you put the 4 of us together, I mean, it was an ideal alliance to go to the end, and now all of a sudden it shattered, and I got to start over again. So I get to camp, and then, of course, I'm in the presence of 4 survivors. I have watched these people over the last 15 years. I've invited them into my home via the television set, and so to actually get to meet them and talk to them was completely surreal. And I do want to clarify that when I asked for the tent, I actually did want the tent. I didn't know they were all going to be in it at that time. I had slept outside the first night, didn't necessarily enjoy it that much. So I wanted to see if the tent was any more comfortable. And then all of a sudden I hear you, David, say, I'm going to sleep outside. And Bob's like, oh, I'm going to sleep outside. And Wendy's like, oh, I'm going to sleep outside. It's like, wait a minute. Me, the them, and you're out here? Real? Is this really happening? And then, throughout the night, granted, I mean, any strategy that happened, it was not when we were all in the tent together. We were all tired out. And I actually, that second night, because of all the energy I'd exerted, especially, the failing at the kayak twice and swimming back to shore, I burned everything I had. So I almost legitimately passed out in front of Jill while we were talking strategy at one point. She swapped into doctor mode to make sure I was okay. But no, we were all just basically going into the tent to sleep, nothing else. And so, but periodically I would wake up and I'd look around and I'd be like, there's Jill and Brooke and Troy's in and Joel. Is this for real? Yeah, I'm not dreaming. I am really here. This is really them. Mike is so jealous when he finds out about this. That was my night.
I have a question about the tent. How big was this tent?
5 people could fit in it. It was me and the 4 survivors. Jill, Brooke, myself, and Troyzan could fit along one side, and then Joel was kind of off on the other side, opposite direction. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1.
It was probably legitimately a 6-person if you had 6 mats. Because if you found perfectly flat ground, which there is no flat ground in Maine apparently, except at the airport. But if you put it on flat ground, you could probably lay 5 people across. That's what Twatty did the first night. We had 5 across, and then if you slide all the way to one end, you could lay 1 at the head. And then if nobody moves, then you're probably good to go. But it's a snug tent. It's 5 fairly comfortably. 6 would be tight.
Right. I will say, I'm the one that brought the tent over with the merge because we'd had it the first night, and the only strategy of mine to give up the tent was I had a horrific night sleeping it the first night because we were on a hill, and I'm a little tiny person, and I got wedged in the corner, and Katie's blanket was like a crinkly electric blanket. I don't think I slept 2 minutes. So when I brought the tent, and then I gladly gave the tent.
Yeah. Katie's blanket gave me the idea of we can't be in this tent all night long.
Yeah.
So we quickly brought up that, you know what, there's 2 tribes out there bonding at the fire, so we need to get out of this tent. But, Jill confirmed that she goes, in the tent there was no strategy talk. There was just sleep going on in the tent. She goes, we had Matt aside and talked to him at other times. I think it was Jill that said she got to talk to you like you said. So, and then when I got knocked out, I got chided for letting you go in the tent with 4 survivors. I'm like, it was Dwayne. Of course, Dwayne couldn't talk to me at all during the game. He actually got followed the first 24 hours to make sure he didn't talk to me. But he didn't say anything. He just offered the camera. Said, if you ever want to say anything, talk to the camera. But he said, why'd you let Matt go in that tent? I said, because I could. There's no way I was going to stop them from talking to him. You know, Matt's a fan, and if he wants to listen to him, he can listen. But he's not stupid. If he's going to talk to him, he's going to find a way to talk to him. You know, and then Jill told me in our little interview a couple Sundays ago, she said, don't ever let an alliance of 4 go into a tent with somebody that could be another member of their alliance. She goes, you or Wendy should have come in that tent at some point and made sure we weren't talking about anything. She goes, we didn't. You know, we talked to Matt outside the tent, but you should never let a private alliance go into a tent by themselves with a candidate to join that alliance. Mm-hmm. So, then I thought, well, if Wendy had gone in there, they'd have 6, and I'd still be on the outside. So she would have joined them right away. I would have. So, so Saturday morning, we get up for probably what I thought was the biggest challenge, except for the kayak and puzzle. I thought the boat was probably the biggest challenge of the day. And what I remember was, as we're walking out there, Joel and Jill kind of took alpha leads. Jill was more quiet. Joel was more vocal. But Joel said, if you guys don't mind, we need one voice, and we need the rest muscle and followers. He said, this is what y'all were talking about with organization. Made such a huge difference. It worked for us the first 6 challenges on Saturday. And Joel said, I don't mind talking. I got a big voice, and I've done stuff like this before. And we're like, hey, if you want to take the lead, be glad to. So he took the lead on that cart challenge for us. And he yelled, we followed directions. Matt was waiting for the puzzle, and it just went well. So what was it like for you guys, Mike and Kristen and Nina, doing that big cart challenge and having nothing really go together?
It sucked. I think it did. Organization is definitely a key factor in almost all challenges like that. And I kept yelling at my tribe mates, hold on, you guys. We have to figure this out first. And no one wanted to listen. They just kept wanting to try to get that wheel on. It's like, no, we got to take our time. It's patience is the key to getting this to go. And I'm like, look at them. See what they're doing. They're hammering that on. That's what we need to do. And, I mean, they just weren't listening because I think panic took over. It was like, oh, my gosh, they're so far ahead of us, and they got so panicked, you know, that they just didn't want to slow down and figure out what they were doing. But that's what I kept telling them. It's all about organization. You know, you get those few seconds to talk and figure out how you're going to do a challenge. Take that time and organize and figure out how best to execute this challenge so that you can win, and then follow it like that. You know, and that's when us 6 were together, that's what we did on every single challenge. Like, okay, this is it. If it doesn't work this way, here's our backup plan. And we just followed it to a T, and it worked out great, you know. So that first challenge sucked so bad. It was those wheels. They weren't going on. They just weren't.
They weren't. Yeah.
Yeah, ours worked out pretty good because, like I said, Joel was kind of leading. Troyzan was following him. Me and Bob were lifting the barge. Matt was looking for puzzle pieces to put together for the next wheel, you know. So it was really, I hate to say it, but it was a super organized thing. I don't know if you guys stood a chance if you got it together anyway. But it was really good. I mean, we had some smart people, and people were constantly working. I'm not sure where Wendy was. I was just holding up the backside. She was flipping over and jumping.
I was getting the pieces, like because they had to go in a certain way, the cogs of the wheel. I was getting those on.
But as much as I'm ready to take a break, I'm ready to slow down. Not with Joel. If Joel's pushing you, you're not slowing down until the puzzle is done. He doesn't care if the other teams even got the first wheel put together. You weren't slowing down. And actually, that's how it is. You throw yourself into the challenge until you are physically spent, and then you go get to have a break. So who was Kristen and Mike? Who was leading the putting together at your group?
Well, you guys had Sergeant Joel. We had Mother Heather. You know, I think she was kind of like the silent leader who was like kind of nicely pushing us in the right direction. I mean, my whole role during that challenge is I was the guy for the Planet Fitness commercial. I lift things up and then I put them down and then I lift things up. Like, I just kind of took a back seat and let everyone else drive. And, you know, because I knew that there were a lot of people on that tribe that were really good at puzzles, me not being one of them. So, I mean, I think the only way I can solve a Rubik's Cube is if I break the damn thing. So I just kind of, you know, took a back seat and let them drive, in the words of Missy Payne.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, I don't think we were working poorly together or totally unorganized. I mean, we got the wheels together, we got the parts that were supposed to, but we just could not get that thing in between to get the wheels compressed. I mean, we actually had no idea, Dave, how you guys got the pieces to fit because all our stuff was in the right place. And we were trying to kick the bar. What's that?
I was just going to say part of it for us, I think, well, Bob was super strong as far as holding things up, and Dave was super strong. But I think it's Joel that comes from a farm in Wisconsin, so he understood how the I don't know the technology, but the end pieces for those wheels, there was not much room to get, like, we had to really kick them to get them to be able to fit on both sides.
We were trying it, but then guess who's kicking them? Me.
Yeah.
And I saw some pictures just the other day because I'm helping put pictures on the website. And, like, I see Nina, she's kicking. Like, we're doing what we can, but I don't think we are making much of a difference by kicking these damn bars. And the wheels would not go on and fit perfectly together. So you guys are just really just running the whole course, and we're just sitting there dumbfounded, like, how did they even get the pieces? And some people are like, well, they tested out that stuff in the water, so the wood swelled, but then that doesn't make sense for the purple team, you know, so I'm actually still dumbfounded why we couldn't, because I know the pieces were in the right place at some point.
Yeah, there was a benefit to having Joel, the farmer, out there because, like she said, he got to the point where he got so frustrated because we had to redo it 2 or 3 times. But he was pulling, and I think Matt was beside him. They were pulling the wheel as far as possible, kicking it as far as possible, and then I would lift my side and Bob would kick, and then Bob would lift his side and I would kick. You know, get the two biggest cows, bulls behind the kicking. Right.
And the whole thing, and it came together when it was being held up. So you had to have that strength too.
Yeah. So that's, I think, the problem was we were trying to kick it when it was on the ground.
Yeah, that was the difference, I think.
And, you know, and I mean, Jared, he was lifting the thing up as much as he could, but I mean, he got fatigued, obviously. He was really
super heavy. It was holding half the pond. I think half the water from the pond was still in those things. They were
I think the wood must have swelled up.
But it's funny because that was something we talked about this week about the reward challenge in episode 9 from this season's of Survivor, and we every once in a while we'll peg Kelly after an episode just to ask a little question, stuff we don't really share on the podcast. But we're like, why didn't you guys be more organized putting those poles in the holes? Because if you look, they all have a black ring.
Right.
You know, and when you drop it down, if you can't see the ring, it's the wrong hole. If you can see color under the ring, it's the wrong hole. And she said that her and Wigglesworth were trying to get them to see that. And it was 6 chiefs or 5 chiefs going all around trying to do, everybody doing their own thing, and they weren't listening. So this first challenge, come to find out, every challenge we won saved me because I was supposed to be the first one to go in that morning anyway. But it was like organization. We've said it like 12 times already. And organization and tribe challenges is a key. I mean, you can come back from anything just about if you're organized and you keep working together as a group. So, but like I said, I'm sorry, Kristen, that you went out after the first one, but I'd have been going out if we had lost. So I'm so grateful that we didn't lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously wasn't fun being the first one out, but, really the first pair out, if you think about it.
Right.
But no, I mean, everybody's like no one wants to be the first one out, but it really is, it's about who loses, what the circumstances are.
How soon did y'all start talking, Nina and Mike and Kristen, when Matt's putting together the puzzle and he's just about done? Does anybody stop and start talking about who to vote out or anything? Did y'all realize that both of you would be going to tribal council or?
Well, I knew I was on the target because I had the idol, and they knew that, so I was just going to play the idol. Because, they'd be dumb not to. First of all, I wasn't sure. At first there could have been an alliance with the group against, and I think I talked about this last time, against Mike and Jared, but then, yeah, I know. Well, you voted me out. So, but then I knew something switched by that morning because then people weren't talking to me, so I was like, I definitely have to play this stupid idol that everybody knows I have because I'm going to be the target. And, we know what happened with the idol, so that didn't work out. So, I don't know. I've been told I wouldn't have been the first target if it wasn't the idol. I think Jessica would have been possibly, but people say stuff. Maybe they said it to make me feel better. But if they also, I think, they wanted to keep Jared around because they thought they needed his strength. Because they also wanted him out too. Mike knows a little bit more about that, but
yeah, I wanted to, the group wanted to get Benji out, but I saw him as, a meat shield in front of me. So I wasn't having that. So I would kind of, I was all for getting you out, and then the idol talk kind of solidified that. There's no way I'm taking any chances with anything. If you're talking about having an idol, that's more ammunition for me to use. So. Yeah,
it makes sense if somebody's got an idol to try to get him out. And at the worst, then, what's funny, though, is if that idol was real, then he would have gone anyway. So, yeah. It really, I don't know. It's hard. Obviously, this is not a game for $1 million. It was just a weekend, but it's still hard to go be the first one out based on somebody cheating in the game. I'm really, that really pisses me off still. And then Chris, as much as he's my friend and my pal, it pisses me off because the whole time I was with him on Waya, he's like, I got you, I got your back. And then somehow he creates this scenario where I don't end up on his tribe and I end up on a tribe with people I just don't have any relationship with. So, that's at least part Survivor that happens. That's part of the game. But when you're out because somebody cheated, it's really hard to swallow that. And I know, I try to think, is there other things I could have done differently? I'm sure we all think about that too. But that target was really not helpful for my game. I still would have been out that day, I'm sure. Yeah. But it's like nobody wants to be the first one. That's like the woo.
So,
I don't know.
So speaking of idols, on Friday when was it Uganda? I think won one of the challenges, one of the many. I think they won all but one, actually all but two. But when Jamie picked up the clue, the bottle with the clue inside, Nina, do you know if that was a clue to a hidden idol?
It was.
And when did y'all find that idol?
Well, let's see. Well, as soon as when we got split up and we got to camp. Almost immediately I told Jamie, come on, let's go. We're going to go find that idol because they're all busy doing stuff. And, it wasn't some we went to do something. I didn't even have a plan at that point. But, immediately, and I got there, and I found the first one. And so when I found the first one, I knew where the second one was by the way the clue read. I knew that they were in identical places, but at different spots. They were by those big rocks. And as soon as I found the first one, then Dr. Jill showed up. And she's like, did you find it? And I'm like, yeah. And at that point, I still felt like a loyalty to them. So I went ahead and told her, it's over here, and she went and found it. Now, of course, looking back, I should have just not done that and grabbed both of them for both of us, and screw the loyalty at that point. But, I was supposed to be thinking, and I could have easily taken that second one without her seeing it and just telling her, no, I haven't found it yet, and we could just spend more time looking for it, But yeah, that's where the clue was. So I immediately went and looked for it.
Did your group know that you had one, or did not until the trouble?
They did not know for sure we had one. They just suspected that we had one. So Chris took me aside and said, look, we want to work with you, but we don't want to work with Jamie. And he gave me his reasons why. They were kind of lame, but whatever. And then I went back and I grabbed Jamie and I said, look, because I had the idol in my possession, because I said, I'll hide it in my stuff because I have all this stuff in my ears. No one will even look at my bag. They won't even suspect anything. And so I grabbed Jamie and he said, look, they don't want to work with you, but they want to work with me, and they've already told me they're voting you out. So I'm going to give you this idol, and you use it on yourself and keep you in the game, and let's get someone else out. And so that's what our plan was. It was great. That's what we were going to do. But then after we lost the challenge, they all said to both of us, we're splitting our votes between the two of you. And Jamie and I just kind of looked at each other like, oh, man, that kind of ruins our plan. So at that point, that's when I was trying to talk to Jeff and Candace and telling them that they were on the bottom. They were definitely on the bottom. They were going to get voted out first. So they needed to rethink their loyalties to the rest of them and try to come on board with us. And Candace was all for it. Jeff didn't want to hear anything about it. And she actually did flip, and she did end up voting for Chris. But at that point, Jamie and I were talking, and he's like, I don't want you to get voted out. I want you to stay. And I'm going to give you back the idol, and you keep it, and we're not going to play it yet. Just let them vote me out, and you stay. So, it was just one of those. And then he kind of went crazy on everybody to make sure that they did vote for him and not me, because he didn't want it to come up to be, for the tiebreaker or anything. So, that's kind of how the idol played. So Jamie and I, it wasn't like we talked a lot of times. It's what, you only got a few minutes to talk. And he's like, no, you take it, just don't play it, just let them vote me out. It was a crazy time at that point with all the talking that was going on and me trying to convince them to come on board with us instead. And, I think that had it been the real game and you have more time to talk, we could have convinced them. But, when you only have a few minutes and everyone's going, oh, my gosh, I don't even know what's going on, it makes it hard to build that rapport with someone and try to convince them to be loyal to you and flip on their alliance.
Yeah. Yeah, we've kind of talked to Mike and Kristen about what was going through them. So, Matt, what were you being told all day Saturday, going from challenge to challenge? Because one thing that was neat was on Friday, Wendy and I, when we were taken out of every challenge, we were taken to almost the farthest point, down the hill, in the woods, couldn't hear nothing. We were just miles away, it felt like, from the challenges. But once we got put on Maz, we were taken to the first, where you go to the porta potty, you turn left, which I think is where the survivors were taken when they were in their tribe. So we were relatively close. We couldn't really hear all the tribe talk, but we could hear who got voted out. We could hear John read out the votes as to who got. So we heard the blind side. Mm-hmm. We heard all the stuff that was going on. But, Matt, I want to ask you now, since we're on Saturday, were they feeding you any information from Friday night to Saturday, letting you feel comfortable or telling you that you were number 5 with their group?
Well, actually what had happened was initially Troyzan was the first one to talk to me and say, we want to have you with us, we like you. But Jill was the one that set up something more solid with me. She told me that I could go with the favorites, and there was 5, me and the 4 of them, but that within Aguna, the story I got was that Jill and Brooke felt like they were on the bottom, and the guys had been making them feel that way. And so what they wanted me to do was join up with the 2 of them and turn it on the guys at 5. This gets me deeper in the game, so it definitely had my wheels turning if it was, the truth. So that furthered where I wanted to work with them. And I definitely wanted to work with Jill. I definitely trusted Jill in the game. And then we got to Saturday morning, and it was in the line for the porta potties as Maz were all going to take our turn before we actually went out on the field to start the challenges. And Jill walks up to me and she says, "Okay, here's the boot order. It's going to be David, Bob, Wendy." I had red flags in my head that would have excited any bull in Pamplona, Spain. Like, it was just, and it wasn't necessarily the order. It was that I had no say in the order being created. They'd already come up with it, and I hadn't had anything to do with it. It was just go along with this order. And I'm thinking, okay, where does that put me in the alliance? I'm probably right at the bottom because I don't have anything strategically. And then I realized we're 4-4, 4 favorites, 4 fans. They don't technically need any of the fans to join. As long as we don't vote together the first vote, they have the numbers. So they don't need me. I don't have to be pulling out the Sari for Micronesia card and like, if you want me, you got to carry me on the chariot and you got to, do all this stuff for me. They need me, or they had me as a number. I didn't know if I felt like an ally at that point. Mm-hmm. So, of course, you have to say yes. You have to just go along with it regardless of how you feel. So I told her yes, but it kept just stewing in my head the whole day. Like, am I in? I'm not quite sure. It just didn't quite feel right. And then, of course, one of the biggest things is, why is David first? And I never went to them. I should have. I should have gone to them and asked, why is David first? Because I didn't quite understand that piece. I thought it was because they saw you, David, as a liability in challenges. Mm-hmm. And it made me uncomfortable voting for you because that makes me a hypocrite. I'm weak in challenges. If I vote you off for that reason, I need a better reason than that. Yeah. Had I known that it was because they caught you were going to be gunning for them, then that would have made more sense to me. But, and that's where it started with the whole vote thing. I don't know if you want me to go there yet or if you want me to wait.
Well, let's get Wendy. When did they start? The Jill Brooke alliance sounds like something that you might have been told too. Were you not told the same thing?
Yeah, I think looking back on it, in my opinion, of the 4 of them, Jill was definitely the mastermind manipulator of that 4 as far as who was going to bring who on. And I think, Matt, you and I were basically told the same story, but replace you with me and call it a girls' alliance.
Right.
So then it was, let's get rid of the guys first. We were the ones on the bottom. I pretty much heard the same shtick as you, I think. Mm-hmm. I found out at some point later that day that the girls' alliance, I believed it for a minute. I thought that would be really cool, and we get back together, and I was really close with Heather. She was one of our original 4. If they could make it, we could do a girls' thing. But I realized later in the day with an idle clue that I found that Joel and Jill were really the 2 that were very close. Mm-hmm. And I probably actually felt the closest with the survivors as far as like a friendship with Brooke. I felt like she, I think had she realized earlier that Joel and Jill were the 2 that were close, like I felt like maybe we could have worked with her in a different way. But I was definitely, I think Matt and I heard almost the identical story. It was just swap you for me and then call it girls. So.
Right, and I never picked up on the Joel-Jill thing. I truly saw them as like polar enemies, polar opposite, even though they were together. To me, they always played it off like they weren't together. In fact, Joel barely ever talked to me, and I figured it was because he caught me talking to Jill so much. And that playing off that role, like, we're not together. They did it brilliantly.
I'll tell you, Matt, when we, it's getting a little tiny bit ahead, but when we merged and we got the merged, I won't even call it a feast, the merged like granola bars, it wasn't not much, but I found a clue in the tray that we carried back to camp, and because of the way we were walking and because I'm the little one and everyone wants the tray, like I couldn't get the clue without someone's help. Mm. And at that point I'm still thinking Jill and Brooke, and I should have pulled Brooke with me to get the clue, but when we sat down I had Jill come over and Jill helped me get the clue. Well, I legitimately had to go off to use the porta potty, and when I came back, it wasn't Brooke and Jill that were looking for the idol together. It was Joel and Jill looking for the idol together. And at that minute, I knew that, at least the story I'd been told, I'd been duped, so I needed to change it. And then they looked in one location. I was literally like 3 seconds from finding the idol on my own when they came up to me, and it didn't happen that way, which probably if I'd found it, I would have been the next to go. So it took me seeing them working together, looking for an idol, to realize that they were the two that were kind of the masterminds. So.
Yeah, what mine came down to, no matter the shuffle or the challenge wins or the challenge loss or the idols, was me. I got so lulled into 6 wins and talking to these guys that I was confident that we were going to win through. And they even confirmed after the game that, once we won 6 in a row, we were just going to win and take you in, Matt, into the merge and go from there. Because all I was thinking about was these guys once Nina had left, I knew that Jamie and Nina were out, and it's only these 4. Right. And if they merge at, 11 or 12, it was always going to be more non-survivors than survivors.
Right.
So if I can just get to the merge, if we can keep winning, there'll be more of us than them. We'll have the numbers. And whatever idols they have, if they have any left, because I knew that Nina had played 1, but I didn't know about more, we would have a chance to knock them out. But the big mistake I made was letting the game play and not playing the game, not stepping up, not making the moves, not making decisions. I should have gone after Troyzan because the first group I went off with was Jill and Joel. After we collected all that wood Friday night, they went to get water, and I said, I'll grab some. I grabbed canteens to go with them. And we start talking, and these two, who I don't think had ever met, were talking as if they'd known each other for years. And not a lot, but they were just talking in just short sentences and talking about things, and I said, okay, these two are the two. That's when I got a hint. And this, to me, is where I should have told Wendy more. I should have talked to her more about what I noticed and stuff instead of just coming up with ideas, actually sharing more of what I was noticing, what I was seeing, because I told Jill afterwards, I felt like Joel and Jill were brother and sister. Jackie Jill, whatever you want to call them, Joel and Jill, and they were the two. They were the two that were going to go to the end. Brooke was like the cousin. She was in the group. She was related to the group, but she wasn't as tight as brother and sister. And Troyzan was like the uncle. He was there. He was related, but he was nowhere near as close as Brooke and nowhere near as close as Joel and Jill were. And she said, yeah, that's about what it was. And I said, but I'm telling you, the fault was mine because I got lulled into confidence that we were going to win. I never got any clues. In fact, it was during the memory challenge. It was Matt and who was it? Was it you, Wendy, and Brooke?
Yeah.
And
it was me with the 3 ladies.
And the 3 ladies. That's right.
And Jill.
And when you took the idol, but it was the next challenge where we lost when Lisa was smart to build that fire so high that she didn't even need the water in the bucket, and it burned it. And I was standing beside Jill, and I immediately said, because Joel had asked me, he said, Friday night he asked me, who's the first to go right now? And it's funny because this is what I did Thursday night with Chris and Wendy and Heather. We said, let's get our first boot picked right now so there's no question when it comes up. And I immediately said Matt, because I didn't know Matt. Matt's purple. He's not blue. I got to go with the one obvious, and I wanted Joel to see it's obvious. He's not blue. And to me, that was probably me showing them that I was loyal blue. So that could have been a mistake, too. That was probably a red flag for them. So all day I'm thinking Matt. Matt's the first boot. Obviously, he wasn't. And as soon as we lost the fire-making challenge, I was standing right beside Jill. And I'm getting too far ahead because after Matt had taken the idol in the memory challenge, he came back, and it was so weird because Matt sat down on one side of the path, everybody else sat on the other side of the path, and Jill's like, he's going to explain why he took the idol, and he did. Tell him what you said, Matt.
Well, and it was the truth too, because I felt like to take the idol in the challenge for myself would have been extremely dense. If I do, it's going to get flushed the very next time we go to tribal. I didn't know how long it lasted, but of course, go figure. I had to be the one to pick that thing. I really was hoping in the memory challenge for like the stuffed lobster, or the apples, or the whatever was easy to just pass up on. But no, I end up with the 2 power items. So I'm looking at the thing, and before anyone said anything, in my heart it's like I really would love to have that thing. I love idols in the game. Idols are a sense of security. If something's not going your way, you can play one and fix it for one time. But then it's like I definitely don't want it for myself. And I hear a female voice behind me say, take the idol. And I'm trying to do what the group says. I want to be seen as loyal. I want to be seen as that. And it crossed my mind that if we take it and we use it as a group at the merge, just because I have it doesn't mean I'm the one who's going to play it. I can hand it off to somebody else. This makes the other people coming in to merge with us paranoid about how they're going to vote. Could possibly cause a split vote, could make something happen that would work out in my favor. And as a group, our favor, because Joel kept talking about let's all stay together. So I'm like, okay, I'll take the idol. I grab it, then I read the note that it's only good for the day, and it's like, oh, crap. You know, I wanted to save it for the next day, and now it goes out the window. So I definitely was going to explain it off. And to further the point that I wanted it to be a group thing as opposed to individual, Tamara at home, I didn't keep it in my own pocket. Because if I kept it in my own pocket, everyone would have said, well, he said these words, but then he kept it for himself. He still has it. He's going to use it for himself. I needed to give it over to somebody else. And I ended up giving it over. Troyzan was the one who took it. I can't remember. I was just kind of offering it in general. But I was hoping it would be seen as a loyalty point for my part, and that they would say, okay, he really is feeling like he's strong with our group. And staying with that. Plus, I'd lost Mike at that point. I'd lost Carl at that point. And I knew Lisa had been the one to turn on Carl. So Purple Power was dead. As far as I was concerned, what I had with the favorites was my best bet to get to the end.
Yeah.
And it just, unfortunately, it made Joel too paranoid that I took the darn thing. And I found out from Jill that he didn't trust me after that. And that, there went my downhill run, from there.
We get to... Man, I wish I'd have reached out and grabbed that idol. But I knew that I wasn't in an authority position. It was the 4 survivors that were in that position, and it was Jill, I think, mostly talking to you. And then I think Troyzan was closest, and he reached out, and when you offered it, he took it and put it in his pocket. But so the next challenge is the fire-making challenge, like I said, and Lisa makes her fire, and they win. And I'm standing right next to Jill, and I said, so what if he asked for his idol back? What if Matt, because I'm still thinking it's Matt, and if I'm Matt, I want the idol back, and she just shook her head slowly, no, she says, nope, not getting it. I said, man, I'm thinking you're playing tough. She's here to win. She's not going to give anybody anything. Poor Matt, and sure enough, it wasn't Matt, obviously, but I'm telling you, I was perfectly lulled into confidence and security, thinking that we were good to go. And not once. So, Wendy, when did they tell you to vote for me, please? Tell me it was the last second. So I don't
it was pretty much the last second. I think. It was pretty much the last second. I think the thing, when I look back, and I'm sure, Kristen being in your situation being first, you're going to second guess a trillion times. But even in my situation, I look back and think, if we had talked to, that power alliance eventually broke, but it could have broken sooner if we'd have had communication with Matt, and David and I had talked a little bit differently. I think if we knew that Jill and Joel were power, I bet we could have brought Brooke and Troy. There's in every scenario, there's 12 different scenarios. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know. Going to that challenge, it was pretty much last minute. I was waiting to hear Bob, I was just waiting to be, at that point, we didn't have enough of a group, so all of us were kind of waiting to be told. Then the next, jump one more challenge, and Matt's gone, and that is frustrating because you could have played your idol had you kept it in your pocket for that vote. But I just think, there's so many different ways that could have broken had we all seen, clearly, who the power couple was earlier on, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something to what Wendy was saying? A decision I made impacted the game for every single one of you, and it was because I passed up going to be the person, when Chris went up, I looked to Jared, and he didn't want to do it, and so he's like, you go do it, and if I didn't want to do it, I don't want to be in the leadership position in that part, but if I had done that, I may not have been voted up first, but probably impacted all of our games very differently.
Absolutely.
And it's that one decision at that one moment, and it's of course you can second guess it, and I know why I didn't do it,
right.
But who knew that putting Chris up there, he was going to basically just throw this game out of whack. I mean, I didn't know he had an agenda that was very different than just playing the game the way I thought the rest of us were playing it, basically.
See, I've gone over that same moment as well because Chris L. was standing at the front of our line with our flag. For some reason, he was just at the front, and he said, one person from each group come forward, and he just walked up, which automatically put him on a different tribe than Joel and a different tribe than Chris. You know, they were always going to be separated. And I think about the same thing. What if I'd gotten on there? But it really wouldn't have mattered so long as Chris P. was picking. He was going to stack.
Right, which is why, and I had the opportunity to go up, but I passed it up, and I looked to him. He was the next person in line, and I looked at him, and then he went up. So, yeah, I mean, I know why I didn't choose it, but like I said, again, I didn't have an inclination that he was doing things in this game that weren't really, I think, the way the rest of us were playing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it didn't benefit him.
It didn't, but, I mean, just because you know another survivor, I just, we didn't even know what it was going to be. I thought it was probably going to be like the normal schoolyard pick'em. I also trusted him, and, he didn't, there's a whole thing with it. But, yeah, that decision impacted the rest of the game for us. So, yeah.
Well, and I feel like there's good and bad luck in the game, and I'm sure, like, Nina can attest to the real game. I almost think is it 50% being smart and 50% luck? Because I think that's kind of what you're weighing. Because there's things that happen out of your control, and then so I was in a lucky situation that because we had foreign power on that tribe, I ended up being the least. I was the easiest for them to bring along. I played that game the best. But at the end of the day, I played that game better than Matt to be that fifth person if it was going to be between us. But that's luck. 100%, and it could have been unlucky. That's what's interesting about the game is how do you play a good game when so much of it is chance.
Right. Yeah, I think if they'd have gone with the schoolyard pick, they would have divided up the survivors probably first.
Right away.
And everybody would have picked their own tribe, and then it would have gone a similar way as last year, where the survivors play and they don't get voted out until, I think, Saturday afternoon or sometime at that point, which gives them a chance to bond and make relationships. But I was talking to friends who were asking me about Maine. And the episode had just come up where Spencer had just gotten aligned with Jeremy. I think it was the last swap that they did. And Spencer told Jeremy, basically, I have no friends left. My alliance is gone. I'm alone. And I told him, I said, it was the only recourse I should have done. When Jill asked, because Jill asked me Friday night, and Wendy can attest, because she smartly kept her mouth shut, and Jill said, are you going to be okay voting out your old alliance when we get there? And I hesitated, and like an idiot, I shouldn't even be doing a podcast anymore. But I spoke, I hesitated, and then I finally said, yeah, of course we are. And then I even told her again Saturday. I wanted to talk to Bob and Wendy. I wanted to make sure they were okay with it, which made us look like even bigger, more numbers, And that's the move I should have made. I should have played exactly what Spencer did and said, I'm alone. I'm not aligned with Bob. I know Wendy, but that's what we should have done. Wendy and I should have gone and said, we're the only two. The other four, we're going to vote us out. We're by ourselves. We're easy pickings. Take us with you, and we're six till the end. So like Wendy said, there's so many different things. And Nina said, hundreds of things you think about. So many different things going up to make those picks. But, I mean, there is a little bit of luck involved. But that's the beauty of Survivor that I love is you need to know of the 30 strategies you can play, which one is going to get you further into the game. And like we've been saying with Maine, you got 1 hour to figure it out before your next decision has to come up.
You don't have 3 days to mull this ahead, and you've got if an hour. I mean, we had like 10 minutes between
if that
and we're going to tribal, and Jared's talking to me like, who are we voting out? I mean, it was all messed. But
yeah, because after each event on Saturday, we'd go back to our little spot, and the survivors wanted to sleep. They wanted to eat what food that was left, and they wanted to sleep. And I'm like, they're sleeping. We need to talk. I don't want to sleep. I just want to make sure it's Matt. Make sure it's not me. Make sure it's Bob. Make sure it's not me. But the more they slept, when you saw the conversations, Jill would talk to Brooke, or Brooke would lay down. But every once in a while, Jill and Joel would have a silent conversation. But it wasn't very long, and it wasn't when too many people were looking around. But those two, that's what I thought. I thought they were calling the shots. Thought that I was good. Obviously, I wasn't. So
it happens.
It does happen. Happens too often.
The running numbers didn't help you any.
No, not at all. I started doing that, and then Matt picked it up as we went along. Jill was smart, man. Every time there was a tribal council, she'd say, okay, how many blues are left? How many purples are left? You know, we being the fans that we are, we're just seeing the numbers, just adding them up, and they're like, okay, so that person's got to go next. That person's got to go next. It's just like in the game. Everything you say, everything you do is either going to come back to haunt you or it's going to come back to benefit you. Right. So for all of you wanting to play this game, you got 4 days or less to figure it out.
This is fast.
Yeah. It's very fast.
Really. And that's the thing. Like, I don't know about the rest of you, but my brain, I think just also being so new and adjusting and being nervous, and it's a whole just stretching the comfort zone, my brain processed differently out there than it does in normal life. Normal life, it's like boom, 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 fast. Out there, because everything was sort of this like slow motion thing going on. And so stuff that you're talking about, David, like you should have done this or you should have known to do that, it's like you're not probably even working at the capacity that you normally do, right? It's like easy to think about it later, but during the game, it's like we're just trying to deal with just being used to even acclimating to the cold at night and not sleeping, plus then we're in this new thing, and you know, Spencer's had a second chance now. He's done it. He's been out there for a long time. So I think we all have to give ourselves some, you know, credit and a break. Because I think even if we went and played this just game again, we would totally have a different experience. Just know what to expect.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to ask you guys this. What was your reaction when you got voted out? I'll tell you mine. I was physically not disappointed that I didn't have to do any more physical challenges. Because like Matt said, with my size, I could have been very much a liability to some degree. I actually got to sit on what we call the Abby Maria bench quite a bit because she sat out in Philippines quite a bit. So Dwayne and I call it that. But it turns out she also had a torn ACL. But I sat out often, and our tribe did well. But going out, Dwayne told me, you know, he said, how do you feel? And I said, well, I'm actually not hungry. They give you the bag of food to immediately eat. I ate the banana because I knew I needed it, and I drank the water. But I was more awake. I was frustrated because I was out. I felt honored that they took me out because when I hugged them, they told me why they took me out. You know, they said, you're going to turn on us. You're going to get those people together. We're not going to have a chance. You've got to go now. So I took it as a compliment. And when I hugged Joel, I said, fine, you're coming on my podcast and tell me that, you know. So, but so I was flattered that they did that. But at the same time, I was frustrated. I wasn't tired. I wanted to turn around and watch the rest of it. I didn't want to go do no exit interview. I don't want to talk about it right now. I just want to watch. You know, so what was it like for you guys when the time came that you left the game? Mike, you go first.
Oh, boy. So, like I said earlier, I was completely blindsided. I had no idea that was about to happen. So when I saw, like, the first Mike vote, I was like, okay, that's Katie. She's about to go. And then I saw Mike, Katie vote, and I'm like, uh-oh, this isn't good. And then the rest were just Mike in my head, like, literally, like, sunk in my hand. And as soon as they said, like, it's time, the tribe has spoken, I got up, didn't look at my tribe, didn't hug my tribe. I just literally just left. And I go up to Kathy, she's like, you're shaking. Why are you shaking? Like, I was literally, like, in my head, I was like, oh, my God. Like, what just happened? Like, oh, my Lord. I was so blindsided. I was frustrated. I didn't even want the food that Kathy had. I wanted to hand it back to her and be like, can you get me back in there? Like, you know, is there Redemption Island that you're not telling me about? Can I just go? Like, you can keep your bagel and your banana. I just want to get back into the game. So it was so frustrating for me. And then to, like, oh, man, it was, and then to do the exit interview with Andy, like, I still hadn't even processed it by that point. Like, I was watching Nene do hers, and I was just like, what am I going to say? Like, I should be talking about who we're voting out next right now. Like, I need to put my plan in motion. I should be talking about what great time I had when it's not even over in my head yet. It's like, oh, it stung. Like, I tried to, like, be optimistic and be, like, all excited to watch other people play, but it was crushing.
See, this is good for Wendy to experience because she got hugs and pictures taken, so she has no idea what we're talking about walking out of this game.
Yeah.
So, Kristen, what was it like for you, other than being frustrated about the idol?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was discombobulated, just because I was like, obviously that, and I was just kind of like, what happened? And basically I was walking off, and I mean, again, I kind of knew I was going that day, so part of me was like, well, at least I don't have to deal with the cold again that night. But I was just really like, what happened? Why did this happen this way? And then yeah, they handed me the food, and I'm like, what do I do with this? It's like you think we all just want to eat, right? But I just wasn't. I was like you guys. I just wasn't even very hungry. And Kathy was a sweetheart. She comes up, she's like, you want a mint? And she just, for some reason, was so comforting at that moment. But and I was talking to Andy, and I got some answers about what happened, so I felt a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know. It was this cross between I knew it was going to happen, but I'm glad I don't have to deal with the nighttime cold anymore. That was at that time. Later on, I would have gladly dealt with another night out there. But people like a couple hours later, they asked me did you have fun? And I'm like, I'm still processing this. So yeah, I think I will say that later. But right now, I'm still pretty pissed off. So and yeah, I didn't hug anybody, and I saw these pictures, of all the after the merge, everybody's hugging each other after each boat out. And I'm like, oh, that's so nice. I'm like, I got up, I had no idea what happened. I didn't hug any person, and I wasn't even really bitter towards them. I just was kind of like what Mike's saying. I was just sort of like, wait, what happened? And now I have to go this way, and so it kind of sucked.
What about for you, Nina? Or go ahead.
Oh, for me it was awkward. Going back to what she said, right after you go down, you got reintegrated to the group. I had Katie's kid sitting next to me and being like, oh, let's root for my mom. Go Green. And in my gut, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I want Green to win. Part of me wants them to lose so badly. And actually, the challenge after I got voted out was the run around and big challenge. In my head, I'm like, this is my challenge. Challenge 1, I didn't do much. I just left the thing. Challenge 2, I held the rope. Challenge 3, I didn't even run in it. I was a 6th person. They challenged it when there were 5. We were under 5. That would have been my challenge. If they had kept me around, we could have actually won. So, it was brutal. Just to yay, go Green! When my gut, I'm like, oh.
What about for you, Nina?
Well, I think I had a different experience getting voted out in Durham than everybody else, only because it was expected. They tried to get me out to vote out before, and I used my idol. And so when we lost again, they told me. They're just like, we're voting for you, right? I'm like, yeah, I know. It was just it was just a given, So at that point, it's just took it in stride. There was nothing I could do. There was no way I was going to save myself at all. So I just told everybody, I said, look, they just point out just that, look, we're voting for you. And I'm like, you guys are really going to vote me out? And they're like, yes, we're all going to vote you out. And they said, well, let me just tell you, any of you that make the merge, just keep an eye on those other 4 because they're playing to win. So, it was disappointing because I think they said I was the 6th out, but really, I felt like I was still the 3rd out again. I even told Bob, I said, Bob, I'm the 3rd one out again, because I was the 3rd one out, on my tribe there. And it was like, darn it, I just wanted one more. But, it's disappointing because you want to play, you want to play so bad, and it's a real disappointment when you get voted out and you have to walk away from everybody, and, it's just such a bummer, and all you do is think about what could I have done, what would have made it different, if Jamie and I could have just pulled 3 people in with us, even 2, at least to get them convinced and then have them pull in 1 more. But, they already had their mindset what they were going to do, and there was just no changing it.
So Matt, did you have any idea that you were next on the list?
No, I did not. No, mine was a complete blindside. And actually, I want to say something first. I feel I genuinely enjoyed the experience that I had. I do feel just a tad gypped because in every real season of Survivor, as well as the 2 first Durham Warriors, the merge and/or the jury starts when more than half the cast is still in the game, half or more than half. And I made it past the halfway point. Granted, we started with 24. We started with a super group, and I made it to 12th, but I didn't get the merge. I didn't get the jury. It's I had a black shirt in my hands, and it got ripped away from me. So that was a little hard to swallow. But for me, with the vote, I actually have to go back to the previous vote, and it was the one with you, David, and finish up that story. You know how I felt about that. I feel like I'm on the bottom. I've been told to vote for you. It doesn't feel right to me yet. So I started to run numbers and think, do I have to vote for David or can I vote for someone else? And it hit me that, again, as long as the four of us fans aren't voting together, they're going to get who they want. So they'll still get what they want. They'll still get you out, but I don't necessarily have to be a participant in that. Now, granted, that's not exactly the best way to play Survivor, so again, I need a better reason than that to just not vote for you. And then it hit me that I had a really darn good reason not to vote for you, and that's because you were voting for me. And if we all vote for you, and you play an idol, because I didn't know the favorites had an idol stash so big that we could have like lit the night's fire and kept it going all night long off of idols. Like we didn't need to go gather wood. We could have just said, okay, fire's low, just throw another idol on. Okay, we're good to go. But because I didn't know who had idols, I thought if you had it or Wendy or Bob had it and you wanted to keep your numbers, the best time to play it is the first tribal. You would keep all three blues in the game. And what's the only vote that makes sense for you, David? It's voting for me.
Right.
So while you hadn't told me, I figured it out. I was the only vote you could make. So if we all 7 vote for you and you play an idol, I go home. I don't need that. I don't need to go out like Chris Page went out. So I've got to come up with something else. So I need to throw another name in the urn and force a tie in case an idol does get played. And I know Jill thought of the same thing, and she mentioned that she told Brooke to vote for her. But that actually wouldn't help me any. Because if I vote for you, and that vote goes down the way it did, and you play an idol, that's 6 votes for David that do not count, 1 vote for me, 1 vote for Jill. And we vote again, and it's between Jill and I go home. Because Jill wasn't going anywhere. So I was still going with that, so that didn't help me any. I needed to throw a different name in the hat to ensure that I stayed. And that's like, okay, well, which name do I throw? I'm not voting out any of the 4 favorites. I'm in an alliance with them. And even though Joel doesn't trust me, I will still honor my word in this case and, stick with that. So I'm not voting for you, David. That negates the plan. I'm not voting and telling someone to vote for me. That's dumb. My name's already in the urn. I don't need it in the urn anymore. So I'm between Wendy and Bob, and I knew that, I think it was Wendy, I think you told me that Bob was your first vote out. In the game, you told me that you stayed original to Waddy, Bob was your first.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm appeasing you two, Wendy and David, by voting for Bob, because I'm not getting rid of someone who's in your core alliance. So if we get to the merge, I've appeased the favorites, I've appeased the fans, I'm kind of in a good spot. So, and as I'm going to the booth, I'm still thinking, David, Bob, it's back and forth in my head. And then it's like, this feels like the right thing to do. And, I didn't have a 10-second conversation with Jill to tell her ahead of time. So she got surprised by that vote. And it was instantly like I had committed the most heinous sin on earth. Like, I need to go back to the place and basically go to confession for what I'd done. And yeah, so my reaction and feeling sad and all was part acting and part real. It was part acting because I knew they wanted me to play like I was thinking I was going to be the one gone, but I wouldn't be. But it was also real because I didn't like that you were going, David, and I also didn't like that I was going to have to return back to the favorites and basically play damage control for what I thought was a move they'd be able to understand. And Jill talked to me a little bit about it on the walk back from that tribal, and I tried to explain to her, but, I'm intimidated by her. I was nervous. I don't talk well when I'm intimidated and scared, and I can't remember what all I said, but it was like she got it. She turns to the group and says, "It's okay, guys. He was just protecting against an idol." I'm like, "Thank you, Jill. Thank you for getting me." And then Jill and Joel together decided to throw the next challenge. They basically, to make an analogy, they built a guillotine in front of everybody, and they shoved me in it and clamped my head down and chopped the rope. And
I'll tell you one thing, Matt. Remember when we had the dinner on Sunday night?
Yeah.
And I told you I didn't think they threw the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I was not in the loop for that. And even though in hindsight how poorly Jill did, I should have known that she threw the challenge. Mm-hmm. I swear I did not know that they threw that. I mean, I knew that it was you for that vote and to vote for you, but in hindsight, I felt stupid for not realizing, because when we lost that challenge, Jill went to sit down, and she seemed visibly upset. I went to sit down with her. I thought she was visibly upset. I thought she was upset because she's a real competitor, so she was pissed at herself. But she was probably pissed at herself that she threw the challenge, and she's a real competitor. But I literally was told after the game ended that they had thrown that challenge. I was surprised. Right. I don't know. I wasn't. My mind wasn't thinking it, I guess. Well, I don't know.
I should have picked up on it too, and I knew something felt fishy, but I wasn't completely sure. Again, Jill had assured me that things were fine between her and I. I really did believe that, and to what extent she was playing me, I'm still not 100% sure. I know I was getting played to a certain point. But I do want to share one other thing about Jill when I'm finished with this story. But yeah, it was tricky for me trying to figure out who really understood. And for me, my mistake, I don't feel like was my moves. It was the perception of my moves by other people. I knew what I was doing felt like the right thing to do, but I didn't get other people to see it that way. I wasn't social enough. I didn't talk enough. And so that's what got me. Had I had a 10-second conversation with Jill, and I talked with Jill about this on the phone, had I told you, would you have gunned for me sooner, or would you have been okay with it? And she actually told me that she would have kept me around as long as I would have told her what I was doing. I surprised her with it, and that got me. But Jill was the last one to give me a hug goodbye when I did leave. And granted, you're going through the whole gamut of emotions. You're hurt from the betrayal. You're kind of relieved to get to sleep at night and, all that. But she whispered in my ear, "I have a buff for you." And the next day, after the whole thing was over, she comes up to me at the after party, and she handed me this. I don't know how well you can see that. It's a floor buff from her season in Nicaragua. Younger tribe, I'm 29, so I still qualify. Give me 11 years, I got to look into a blue one. But she gave it to me, and she said, "I hope this will take some of the sting out of the fact you didn't make it to the merge." And I thought that was a really sweet gesture, because it is a game, and she could have said, "I outwitted, outplayed, outlasted you, deal with it." And she didn't, And outside the game, you don't question the integrity of the move. This, was something that she did to, try to make me feel better. And so the way I tell people with Dr. Jill, she's a doctor. She can wield a scalpel better than anybody, and she'll cut you open if she feels like she needs to. But as a doctor, she also knows how to patch up a wound and make you feel better. So I told her on the phone, I think she played a master's class game. I'm excited to watch it back. I'll be watching it very closely. So, I don't hate anybody. I'm not mad at anybody. Obviously, it sucked to be that close to the merge and not get it. But I can live with the decisions that I made. And, Dan Foley and I had an amazing conversation in the stands on Sunday, and he gave me the best piece of advice to just own my game. Own the successes that you have. Own the consequences of your mistakes. At the end of the day, you played your game. And I know that I played my game, and I played the best I felt like I could in the moment. So, there's no major regrets.
I'm glad you brought that up, because your vote on Bob, because for fear that just for the possibility that I could have an idol, knowing that your name would be the only other name written down, was genius. At the same time, it showed them that you were thinking on that level. And like you said, that's why they didn't want to take you any further. This guy's smart. Whether he's with us or not, he's too smart to take to the next level. And that's not a slight on Bob or Wendy. Wendy played the opposite in that she made relationships, but she didn't reveal all that she could do and do in the game. And fortunately for her, it wasn't luck or anything. I've dug my own grave, but Wendy was never put in that situation pre-merge where she had to show her chops, show what she can do with the strategy and what she knew. And you and I were, unfortunately, and that was by the draw. Thanks to the shuffle, you were the loner, and I was the big mouth that talked too much. And
but I also think for me, like a benefit for me before the merge, that actually was bonus points but was not planned, was I got sick Friday night. That's one thing I would tell people that are going on, make sure you drink a lot of water. And I know David kept telling me to drink, but I really got dehydrated and got sick. And Friday night, I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue on, but Joel especially of the survivors saw that, and so I think I was like this little tiny older woman, like maybe the oldest woman out there, or one of them. Jill and I were the same age, and I got sick and I went off and I got sick and came back and played, and so I think that gave me some bonus points to being the last one of us standing.
I think Joel couldn't let someone trying that hard, get kicked out of the game that soon. Yeah. I think he saw that and just said that woman deserves a chance to finish this game if she can.
Yeah.
And that was a personal thing for him. He was overly impressed.
Yeah. He's my buddy because, I think it really did. I think he was, he said afterwards, like, when I got called into that group, we only had a day out there. No one knew anyone. He's like, who is this teeny person coming with this tent? And then to see me give up that tent and then get sick and just continue, I do. I think it was, it wasn't it was mental, but it was just different. I definitely think that helped me that night.
Yeah, my vote out should have been a blindside, but it was funny because we talked about Matt about 3 challenges earlier, and then right up to the challenge, I didn't hear from Wendy or from Bob or from Troyzan or from Brooke. I'd only randomly heard from Jill and Joel. And as we got to sit down, I was just thinking, we haven't really had any other conversations. And Dwayne had shot a video because he knew I was going. And he kept going to question, looking at me. And he said, is that the point where you realized that you were in trouble? And I think it had just talked to me and then just moved on to Brooke. And as she was talking, I wouldn't even listen to what she was saying. I was thinking, if they're going to get me out, if they don't trust me, now's the perfect time to do it because I haven't heard anything in a while. Haven't had any conversations in a while about it because we've been winning. We haven't had to have those conversations. So, and as we're going to vote, I don't know if I told you in the first podcast, but I looked at the camera and I said, if this vote is a surprise to you, then this is my last tribal council. I said, but if this is a duplicate vote, then I'm in good shape. And when I lifted the lid, I saw, it might have been Matt's ballot right in front of mine, and I saw a D on it. And I said, yep. I said, the rest of them are going to have my name on it too, because I didn't know, I hadn't talked to Matt, because I didn't want to get to know Matt, because I didn't want to be sad that I was voting him out. I didn't want to be friends that fast. We got to be great friends on Sunday as we watched together, but on Saturday I didn't want to have my heart broken that he was going to be voted out instead of me, but I said, I saw the D and I thought, yep. I looked at the camera like, see you later. And then I went and sat down and the votes weren't a surprise to me. I wish I could have done something else, but they were probably, they weren't hoping for, they didn't care if I was blindsided. They just wanted to be gone. And that's why I had come to terms before I even stood up, that I was going to go. So it didn't burn like it did Mike. Sorry about that, Mike. But, but somebody's got to get the hashtag.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
all
man,
right.
That was rough.
So what else do y'all want to talk about or share before we sign out of here? About Durham Warriors, anybody looking to play or anything else any stories you want to share from the party afterwards or anything like that?
Well, I know Murphy's Law struck for me because my favorite challenge in the history of Survivor happened to be the very next one after I got voted out. We came up over the hill on Sunday, and I see the memory cube sitting down there with the 6 symbols, and it's that challenge where you repeat back the sequence. Right. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, they had to put that now, now when I'm gone, like that, and it's my ego talking here. I know I can rock that challenge, and it would have been fun to wear the necklace, be the first one with the necklace, but it is what it is. I had a great night at Ponderosa, great day the next day. Already getting involved in next year. I've designed 2 challenges that have gone to Kevin Thurber for next year. Can't talk about it too much, but I'm excited.
Well, that's just another reason why I think they didn't want to take you, because I think they knew, because they're seasoned survivors, there was going to be mind challenges coming up. There were going to be things that you had to think about and work yourself through. And I even remember afterwards, that was another reason why, actually they said that before they voted me out. That was another reason why they didn't want to take you too far, because if you start getting on a roll with these mind challenges, it was going to be harder to get you out. Right. You were a fan favorite. You were the little guy that could. That's somebody they did not want. So they ended up taking the little mom that could, but they didn't want to take the little guy that could to the final.
Right.
What about you, Kristen? Anything else from that weekend?
like I said, when the people were asking if I had fun, and I said, not really, not yet. It's kind of like the previews for next week's Survivor, when you see Keith saying, people ask me if Survivor's fun. It ain't fun.
Yeah, like, cruise is fun.
During it, I don't know if I was having a lot of fun, but I immediately wanted to play after. Like, 3 days later I'm home, I'm like, I want to go back out there. And so I just think, I mean, I talked about this before, but it's such an amazing event. Whatever happens, whatever luck, bad luck, good luck, what we could have done differently, the fact that a lot of us are still thinking about it, it's pretty impressive. And I'm helping, that's awesome that Matt's helping with designing some of the challenges. I'm helping them out with the website, even though there's nothing up yet. And definitely looking forward to going out there next summer and volunteering. And if that wasn't, if there was an event that didn't have that big of an impact, I would not be flying from the, West Coast out to Maine next summer, to basically paying my way and going to volunteer. So, I still get chills thinking about it and talking about it, and I think I've brought this up sometimes in our little groups on the forums, but even watching Survivor is a little bit different now just because of the experience we went through. And albeit it's not the same, it's just you think about things a little bit differently. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that, kind of is a bummer about it, but the overall experience is just greater and bigger than the small stuff. And there can only be one winner, and that's Wendy.
That's right. What about you, Mike?
Oh, man. So I think for me, probably the biggest thing I really took from this is, how much luck, and there's so many other factors that go into this game than you realize. And I can't even tell you how many times I've Monday morning quarterbacked it, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? What if Lisa wasn't so damn anxious and stepped up to pick the chip for the chive draw? Oh, man, I literally have ran through every single scenario in my head, and I can't watch Survivor the same anymore. Every time someone gets voted out, I used to be you should have done something differently. Why are you getting voted out? And now I'm I actually feel bad for you. It just messes with your head. But, just to be such a huge fan of the game and to go out so early, it was tough, but, I wouldn't have changed anything. I still had the experience of a lifetime. I still had, I still, loved the game and loved every second of it. And, if John Vaha called me tomorrow and said, hey, we need you to go out there tomorrow in, the bitter cold, I wouldn't wear shorts, but I'd be there. I would probably. But, if you're even thinking about it, just apply, just send it in. I remember I sent in my form. I was sitting in the parking lot waiting to go into the gym, and I just filled it out on a whim, and I was just what's the worst that could happen? And the worst that could happen was I get voted out in third. So it was a great experience, and, I loved it. And if you're a Survivor fan who's even thinking that, hey, this is for me, I should totally do the show, you should totally do this. It's the real deal. It's as real as it gets. And if I can be there next year, I will be there next year.
There you go. Nina, have you talked to anybody from the Survivor community that you're recommending they play?
Oh, yeah. I talked to a lot of people from the Survivor community and told them that they need to go out there and do this. Not only for the, playing Durham Warriors, but also because of the charity that it supports. That's the part that really means a lot to me is the charity work and the charity that it supports. But, I've had a lot of survivors that have asked me, especially on my season, was it really worth it? Was it really fun? Did you really enjoy it? I'm like, yes, it is the most awesome experience to play with fans because, fans are what keeps the show on, right? And I love the fans. I absolutely adore all of the fans. And the experience of getting out there and actually playing with them and making sure that they have a good time. And it just really meant a lot. It really warms my heart. I just think it's as close to Survivor as it can get, and Bob does a great job. John does a great job. Everybody that put the whole thing together, Chuck that does, a lot of the challenges and stuff. And that was one of the things a lot of them have asked me is, the challenges, are they really that real? And these challenges were real. They were awesome, authentic challenges that, you do in the real Survivor game. So for anybody that really would love to play Survivor and they just can't get on, this is like the second best thing that you could do is to come out and do this. And also it supports a wonderful charity on top of that. So I've been encouraging even a lot of my friends, that would love to play. I'm like, just do it. I mean, it's 4 days. It's not like you have to go out there for 39 days and all of that, It's just 4 days. It's fun. It's a great experience. You'll walk away from it thinking, wow, I just played Survivor, And just the fact that there are the survivors in the game playing with you also is just an added plus because I think that it kind of puts the fans that actually play Durham ahead. You get closer to some of us survivors and you start to develop like a relationship with us. And so if you're a fan, it's a win-win situation. It's just awesome. It's just a great experience. So hopefully we'll see a couple of my castmates actually play, and then some of the other survivors that I talk to, hopefully we'll see some of them play, because I've been really encouraging them to get a hold of John and Bob and everybody that's involved and see if they can volunteer some of their time for this.
Awesome. I'm going to give Wendy the last word. I want to say, just confirm about the challenges, because when the guys were taking naps, especially Torzan and Joel, Torzan was just talking about how tired he was, and I was like, did y'all sleep? You slept in the tent last night. He goes, dude, we don't do 8 challenges a day in Survivor. We do one every 2 to 3 days. He said, this is nuts. These challenges are like real. These people went way overboard with these challenges, and he just kept going on and on about them. But it's funny because us that got voted out, and there's no redemption island. Sorry, Mike, there's no redemption forced or anything forced. But once you're out of the game, it was neat in the sense that I got to go back to being a fan, and I couldn't wait to find Nina, because I'd never met Nina personally, and we went to what was our Ponderosa, the guys' Ponderosa. There's the guys and the girls, and me and Mike and Matt were looking for pillows through this pile of pillows and blankets. We were trying to find our places to sleep. And all of a sudden, the place turned into a party because the lights were on. People were showing up. Here comes Kristen and Nina coming into our hut. And we're just talking. I'm like, I'm talking to Nina. And I finally get to talk to Kristen again, because we hadn't talked since the first night at the campfire. And to me, that was like one of the happiest nights of the whole weekend, because just hanging out and talking about Survivor. Me and Mike and Matt weren't in game mode anymore. Me and Matt weren't hiding from each other. We weren't trying not to lie to each other. We were talking about everything. And then here comes Nina talking to me face to face, and it was so cool and so awesome. And it was practically worth the whole experience. The charity is worth everything, but just the chance to talk to survivors. And even that, we got to go out to the campfire, and there was Dan, and there was Jimmy, and there was other people out there. Bob was out there, and Russell, who won the first season, was out there. And it was just a campfire. And we were having Ponderosa with all these people, asking them anything. They were telling us anything we wanted to know. And it was just a great experience. To me, it's better than almost any other face-to-face autograph session you could have with them, because you got them sitting there. And you find out that survivors are just people. They like to talk. They like to laugh. They like to joke. They like to have a good time. And it was just a great, great experience. John and Bob have really set up a wonderful, relaxing experience to get to know survivors. And it was great.
You were saying how, you could go back to being a fan and being able to talk to everybody and everything. And I think that's one of the things that I actually loved from getting voted out, was spending that time with you guys that night by the fire, and like you said, at the Ponderosa and all of that. I mean, to me, that was just, it was awesome. And of all the charity events that I've done, I've done a few other ones with survivors and other reality stars. Durham Warriors is my very favorite. And I'm actually going to come back next year to volunteer. And just to show you how much of a favorite it is, next year during Durham Warriors is my 25th wedding anniversary, where I wanted to have this great big vacation romantic time with my husband. And I said, no, we're not doing that for our 25th anniversary. We're going to Durham Warriors. So I'm spending my 25th wedding anniversary Durham Warriors next year, if that says anything. That's how much fun I had and how much that whole thing means to me just like you said, David, the whole package. It's like a package deal, the whole thing. So that's how much it means, man. Spending my 25th wedding anniversary at Durham Warriors next year.
Awesome. All right, Wendy, I'm going to give you the last word.
Well, firstly, Nina, I guess we'll have a party next year for your 25th anniversary with all of us there.
Yay!
we'll pop the bubbly at night when everyone goes back to their camp. For me, I'm a huge fan. I started watching the first season when my daughter was 6 months old, and she's almost 17. So, my kid's whole childhood has been Thursday night first and then Wednesday night Survivor. It's been a part of our family ritual, literally. So as a huge fan, you kind of envision what would it feel like to be on the show. And I had never applied. I'd never thought that I could do it. So when I saw, like Nina said, it's 4 days, it's manageable, I was still really scared to apply. But I really decided that just showing up, I won. And that's really how I feel. So I really feel like anyone who wants to experience what it's like, we felt the physical element, we felt the mental element, we felt the whole spectrum of what it would be like to be on Survivor. I think we felt it in 4 days. You're playing for a fantastic cause, and if the little mom from Nokesville, Virginia, who's 5 foot tall, can win it, I think anyone has a shot at winning it. And for me, it's just a fantastic experience. I really did feel like the minute they stuck that, the minute we went to the first barge, I felt like I won. I'm going to experience this. So no matter where, if I was first out or the last one standing, I won to experience even a glimpse of something that's been such a fun part of my life for the last 16 years. So.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, thank you guys for spending a couple hours with me tonight. If we do another one, I'll let you know if anybody else wants to come on later and talk about it. But I'm going to sign us off and just hang on for a second, and then we'll say our goodbyes. But once again, thank you all for coming on, and thank you for listening. If you listened this far, it's www.durhamwarriorschallenge.com. January, we're going to have a big production podcast. We've already got some people within production that we're going to come on with Dwayne and I. We're going to have fun talking about it. And applications will go up sometime in January. We'll let you know. If you're not already a member of our Facebook group, come to facebook.com/groups/STWDD, and we put Durham stuff on there all the time. We'll put all the updates and stuff. And we'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.